As long as that light is red, it should be good.
Speaking of lights.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode, a special episode. A proper special episode of Not For Nothing. I am down here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I am visiting a very, very, very good friend who had the bright fucking idea that we should try to paint. We should try to be creative. We should try to do something, a little bit different than the just sitting in front of a camera and talking about yourself. Because that's kind of how this whole thing had started, and that's kind of the direction I wanted to take it in. But I'm being forced to paint, which has been a long time coming. And on top of that, I haven't done it in a while, airbrushing, especially on the road with lately it's been guerrilla, camera work and shit. Tonight's going to be no different, and my fingers are crossed. So what I'm going to do is I'm not even going to introduce my guest this evening. We're in his home, in his basement. I apologize up front for everything that's going to happen that's going to fuck this whole thing up. But on that note, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Hi, everybody. I'm Rodney Raines, Ace Custom Tattoo, Charlotte, North Carolina. And yes, I have talked this young man into actually painting again, which, is a large part of how I knew his work to begin with many, many years ago, was from tattooing and painting. And, when we're in these straits where we look at all the things that there's saturation in the community and too many people doing exactly the same thing, it seems like a good time to retreat to where it all started from and what made it magic to begin with, which was, of course, art, making it, creating it, collecting it, sharing it with others, and several years ago, probably 2003, maybe.
Well, actually, before you get into that, I'm sure most people know who you are. You've been tattooing for quite a few years. You've got a lot of time under your belt. Why don't we just do a quick little background on who you are, how long you've been tattooing, where you got your start. Just a simple quick.
Okay, I'm South Carolina born. It was illegal to tattoo in South Carolina when I started. I started after college in '96. My first tattoo machine was a gift from my girlfriend. That was a college graduation gift that she was able to provide for me through Shay Cannon from Liberty Tattoo now. At the time, he was working at Tornado Tattoo in Atlanta, Georgia.
Staple of Atlanta.
Yeah, and so it was not your average way into the business. It wasn't like they would have just done that for anybody. But he dated my sister at the time, and so I kind of had the family in on things. And so when it came time to get some equipment, I had loosely talked about it, but it was by no means a game plan. And then as I was graduating, she got the idea of contacting him, and she took it upon herself to touch base with him. And hey, I want to get him some equipment to tattoo with. And he knew I wasn't going to give hepatitis to a trailer park or something like that. So he knew I was capable of making some good decisions. And then he got her set up with stuff for me. When he hooked me up with it, it was like, all right, there's the pointy end. Point that at your clients, and fucking here's how you make some needles, and here's some ink and some tubes and some needles. And call me if you have any questions.
How long did your apprenticeship last?
I didn't have an apprenticeship. He literally,
okay.
It was like, here's some shit. Call me if you have any questions. And this is 96. No, this is 95.
96, 95.
This is 95 when I graduated. So I didn't have the benefit of even being within 2 hours from him. I didn't have a cell phone or anything like that. It was like, all right, I guess I'll figure this shit out. And then if I have any questions, I will. So not long after this happened, it took me a while to get the guts to do anything with it. It was 96 before I actually started doing any tattoos. And by that time, he was about to move, or already did move, down to Miami to work at Lou's, with Lou Scabaris. And so I was getting most of my guidance at that point from Phil Colvin. And, I still...
You and Phil are still pretty...
yeah, we're still very tight. I mean, I still know Shay. I still see Shay whenever we cross paths. We always, we're friendly still. And, he runs a great shop in Atlanta, and I've worked at his shop many times, and yeah, all good stuff there, But Phil was responsible for more of my actual tutelage, if there were such a thing, and he and I are still real close now as well, and I would go down and watch him tattoo, and quite often when I'd go down, there wasn't much for him to do, so we would just kind of hang out. I wasn't in any hurry to get a lot of tattoo work at the time, so I wasn't making a lot of decisions that ended up with me with a bunch of stupid shit tattoos that I had to cover up later on.
A bunch of issues that you're going to have to worry about.
For better or worse, it would have been a quicker way to learn, but I didn't even have that mindset then, and, Phil wasn't looking at it like, hey, I'm apprenticing this kid, so he wasn't really forcing my hand on anything that I was needing to do.
Now, at the time, it was illegal.
It was illegal in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And I'd never, I'd never, like, a lot of my friends got tattooed up in North Carolina, but I never had. So in 96, I actually started tattooing. By 97, I had about a year under my belt. I had a handful of photographs of stuff I had done on my friends, which I was just doing after hours on them. I was working for my dad digging swimming pools, and so when it came time to get in the mix, like it wasn't even me like searching it out. Shay gave me a call and said, "Hey, I got this guy that I work with, a guy named Rob Bramer. Worked with him down in Miami." And he's like, "Man, I really need some help. I got this shop in North Carolina," and Shay's ears perked up, and he's like, "How far is that from Greenville?" He goes, "Dude, it's like the closest town to Greenville. It's like 45 minutes. He's, "Well, I got a guy that needs a job." He's like, "Any good?" He's like, "Honestly, take his portfolio." As if I had a portfolio.
This is before art. This was after art school.
This is after art school. So, which was again why Shay didn't hesitate at giving me a hand. Is because I had some sense at least, but he sent me out there. He's like, he wants you to go up and see this guy Mario. So I was like, all right. So I carried my shit up there, and Mario's like, well, we need somebody. I'm gonna be going to Detroit. I'm the only one tattooing, but Ray Alexander, he's been piercing. But he knows how to run the shop, but he's just got his apprentice license. So he's not really a tattooer, and yet he's kind of a tattooer, gonna be. Like he can run the shop, he's been here for 2 or 3 years, so he can answer any fucking things that you need to know. But yeah, just don't do anything you shouldn't do, and we'll check some pictures out when you get back, and if things look good, maybe we'll get you on the mix. And so I was like, all right. So I told my dad, like, hey, man, I think I'm going to need some time off. I got a chance to work at this tattoo shop for a while.
How supportive was your dad? Like,
he knew I didn't want to be dealing with dump trucks and tractors my whole life. He knew I had an education that I fucking wanted to make use of that I wasn't. And he was all for it, like in the way that a person that didn't understand why anybody would ever in their life get tattooed. He knew that he wanted me to fucking be achieving some shit that I wanted to do.
And it's kind of surprising that you weren't actually heavily tattooed. You weren't tattooed, really.
I had 3 tattoos at that point. When I started, I had this octopus that's on my arm here, and I had this piece that I got done in England. That was my first tattoo from a guy named Tattoo Paul Breed. He was in Exeter. I lived there for a little while when I was in college.
Going to school and shit,
And then Phil had done a piece. Shay did this, and Phil did a piece on my calf that was a recreation of an Edvard Munch painting. And
you went all artsy fartsy for your third tattoo.
Oh no, it was called Death and a Maiden. It was an etching of a skeleton dancing with a woman. So it was a chick with a big ass and a fucking skeleton. Imagine that working its way back into my fucking life.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so at a really, like I kind of was just like thrown into the mix. I worked for a week when Mario got back. He looked at what I did, and it was like some tribal and some kanji and maybe a fucking butterflies and
that's par for the course.
Yeah, some Judy Parker, some fucking tattoo brand stuff, maybe some Vinnie Myers or some Dave Waugh or something. Like whatever it was the shit that was hot in '97, and I did maybe 10 tattoos that week, give or take. And they came back and they were like, "Yeah, man, you want a job?"
You did enough for him to be
I'll take a
impressed.
fucking job. And so next thing you know, I'm on the fucking schedule 5 days a week.
How much of a commute was it for you?
About 45 minutes.
Well, that's not too bad.
Up the mountain on the way there, down the mountain on the way home. So
I would imagine too. You kind of living out this way or living down that way. You're kind of used to traveling a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I was driving 25 minutes to go dig swimming pools. So. That first week I was getting a shit split from the money, but it didn't matter. I just wanted to try it out,
Now, having said that, like, do you think it was like, I mean, what was it? It wasn't just a matter of making money. It was a matter of like wanting to learn how to fucking. Man. Like, did you like right out of the gate? Like a lot of people get into tattooing, they want to be like a traditional artist. They want to do what's just on the walls and never really grow. Did you come in like with me personally? Like when I got into tattooing, like I wanted to be me. I didn't want to do what was on the walls. And I got kind of a rude awakening by meeting Paul Booth and seeing that this guy was a true artist who was super creative, more so than I was, and brought his art to the skin, but he did it in a way that was tattooable. Where that was kind of a rude awakening for me in a good way, you know what I mean. So then it became like, well, I want to do what's on the walls. I want to create what I see. I want to do all the cool shit.
Yeah, you wanted to make this stuff for the walls.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's what it eventually came to within a year. Just creating flash and stuff like that. Did you have a similar kind of thing, or were you cool just creating what was on the walls, or you just?
I mean, well, I'll say this: like some of my first tattoos, I drew. It's a classic fucking artist move. Like, oh man, I would love to design my own thing until you realize, like, as soon as I drew the octopus that Shay did.
Right.
And I remember drawing it when I was on the drive back from one of the trips to Florida, because my sister lived down there by that time. She lived down in Miami too. So I'd gone down and visited, and I remember working on sketches and shit like that. So I told him I wanted to get it done, and he was cool with it. And then when he started shading it the first time, like I had this color drawing, all this oranges and purples and all these fucking colors, and he does this session that was nothing but black. And I had no black. I never used any black. I mean, I did a black outline, but I didn't have any black on it. And then all of a sudden he starts shading it, and it's like fucking 3/4 of it's black. Like just straight black. And I was like, what the fuck is he doing? This is not in my purchase order at all. And all of a sudden, it took me a while to figure out, like, oh, that's how you have to do this. You got to fucking shut up and put some black in it.
At that point, you realize that it's
it was a really valuable thing from, like reading looking at magazines and watching Phil tattoo and knowing the few people that I knew with tattoo work. Like seeing it in person and realizing, like, oh man, it's completely different than I knew it was, or I thought it to be, I guess. And it was like, all right, well, this is happening because I didn't know anything fucking about it. I'm looking at comic books. I'm looking at album covers. I'm looking at paintings by Frazetta or fucking more yet. Not I wasn't even that familiar with Frazetta as much as I am now. You know, it was.
See, for me, that was the things that I wanted to fucking tattoo on people. Like, I remember,
ideally, yeah.
Like, I mean, you know, like, I was big fan of Frazetta. I was a big fan of, like, Boris Vallejo, Hajime Soriyama, Olivia, like, all these pinup artists. Like, it wasn't until I've been tattooing for, I think, nearly 2 years that I finally got to do that Betty Page on somebody sitting on a jukebox on a chest panel. And that was, for me personally, that's what really kind of fucking shot me through the fucking, you know, through the ceiling, because I got published, and it fucking blew up for me. It was a huge fucking, you know, boon for me back then.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't really know. Man, I was so hungry to do anything that I was looking at magazines and stuff like that, which were hard to come by. You know, again, state where it wasn't legal. I didn't really have.
Did it really? But did it affect like the bookstores and stuff and magazine shops? Like,
well, dude, I mean, like I was in the belt buckle of the Bible Belt. It wasn't like there was a lot of fucking. I couldn't go to Chinatown in Greenville, South Carolina, and go to the fucking dragon section and pick out some fucking books. You know, it's like, where am I gonna get things about tattoos? It's gonna be in truck stops, and that's about it. You know, truck stops and sometimes bookstores.
Yeah, I guess
flea markets, buying used books or used magazines and flea markets and shit.
Yeah, living in the South is definitely different than growing up north. You know.
Yeah, you know, and. So I had a little more starved use of that. I mean, there was certainly like punk rock and heavy metal album covers and stuff. That stuff was affecting my sensibilities as an artist. But I also had friends that were getting tattooed, you know, like before me and while I was doing it, and you know, they were getting shit flash off the walls, and they were getting, you know, album cover stuff. And
how many of those people did you get to tattoo back in the day? Like, did you tattoo much of your friends in the back in the day, or?
Yeah, and there was one guy named Steve Wood, and Steve, to my knowledge, is still tattooing. I haven't spoken with him in a long time, but we knew each other from the time we were teenagers, and he had a bunch of tattoos that he wanted covered up. And he, like, when he found, like, we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and we ran into each other out in a bar, and probably hadn't seen each other in 3 or 4 years, and he's like, yeah, I'm doing tattoos now. I was like, oh, really? I need too. And our friend Rex was doing tattoos. Like, Rex and I went to high school, Rex Barnes. And so Rex had started tattooing. He was the first one into a shop. Steve never really knew Rex, I don't think, back in those days, back in the high school days. But Steve had a bunch of tattoos he wanted to get rid of, and he's like, hey man, you want to practice on me? And it just became kind of this like weekly, bi-weekly thing. He had a sleeve, and I started, I mean, like, I kind of cut my teeth doing cover-ups, because that was an easy thing to talk people into, you know? Like, it's hard to talk them into, like, hey, I want to do a Frazetta painting, but you could talk them into, like, hey, you got some stuff that you really don't wish you had there anymore, and you don't have the money to do it any other way, so how about we just fucking figure this out together? And it was even better with Steve, because Steve had some equipment too, and he was trying to learn, so he was learning by osmosis and helping me. I mean, he didn't have a whole lot to learn from me, because I didn't have anything to fucking really show him. We were kind of learning by, like, tattoo until we got thirsty enough to leave and go get beer. And, it became quite a fucking thing. And it was funny because, like, one of the tattoos that we did that we were using as like idea, it was kind of, actually I don't think it was a tattoo, I think it was some flash that he had. It was some Hoyer flash with some biomechanical
Bio Hoyer stuff.
Yeah, remember when he did like a set back in the early 90s? It was like a big eyeball with two pupils in it and a bunch of like pipe work, looked like some sewer pipe.
I do.
Yeah. Well, we were using that, but I wasn't doing anything with a stencil or anything. It was just like using it for inspiration, as I had to try to use every line that he had on him. I had one machine that I was switching back and forth from a liner to a shader. At the time, I thought it was a Mickey Sharp. It was a Mickey B, but I didn't. It took me years before I knew the difference in those things.
You didn't know what the difference was. It's funny. I was just talking to Chad today from the shop, and we were talking about Mickey B's versus Mickey Sharp's machines.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just something I didn't know that at the time, but it wasn't load bearing on any of my fucking growth at that moment. It was still a better machine than I could have got out of the back of a biker magazine. I had dynamic ink, and I had a fucking lunchbox power supply. The light worked on it. I still have it. Light still works on it.
That's fucking killer.
It's in the house here. I can set it up later on. We'll do some sweet tats on you. Yeah, man, that was the way in, was having somebody that needed it and somebody that trusted in me, and we worked, for months on this stuff. And he went on to start tattooing later on after that. Last time I knew anything about him, he was in California, I thought, but I don't know. Maybe he'll see this and get in touch with me. But yeah, so it was just like trial and error, and then eventually I ended up in Gastonia. I ended up with Rex hit me up. He was working for Randy Herring, and they were way, like, exponentially busier than where I was.
Right.
And they had just lost an artist, and he's like, dude, we need help over here. All I wanted was to be doing more tattoos. Like, I was learning, but I wasn't learning fast enough. And I got the opportunity to go and do some work there, and I did, and it was the making of me. I went from doing like 10 to 15 tattoos a week to doing upwards of 15 tattoos a day.
Yeah, that's the only way to get better, man. Is just to do it.
And it was great fun working with my buddy. Like, Rex and I, we started hanging out in 87, maybe, probably 87 or 88. Like, I mean, the first time I went out and watched a real punk rock show, me and him and our friend Tyler we left high school and drove up and saw the Circle Jerks play with Annie Scene in Charlotte in, let's see, 88. So we had this history of music, like you and I were talking last night about, the adverse or the added effect that music has in your friendships, and or in some people's. I guess not everybody has that.
Well,
but
yeah, I don't.
It's always been a factor in a lot of my friends. A lot of our patterns.
A lot of the people you hang out with are fucking musicians and whatnot. Like,
yeah.
I didn't grow up with that at all. Actually, if anything, it was like being introduced to older music. Like I grew up listening to like Patsy Cline, Johnny Cash, Neil Diamond, like Barry Manilow, stuff like that.
That being said, like, think of who you worked with in the fucking late 90s.
Well, the funny thing,
you ended up working with Sid, who's he's a staple in his community.
Well, but the funny thing about that was, like, when I worked for Sid, dude, I worked with him for a year, and it wasn't until, like, I think the last. You
didn't even know, did you?
Yeah, I had no idea. Like,
That's
I wasn't into hardcore. I mean, I grew up on Long Island, dude. I grew up listening to, like, fucking WBAB, fucking Led Zeppelin, fucking Def Leppard when they came out, fucking. Nothing Boston, Foreigner, you know what I mean? There was nothing like really...
Yeah, that's what we listen to now.
Yeah, right. Well, I never grew out of it, But the crazy thing was, like, I remember coming back, dropping him off at the train station, and he made a comment how he had to go to practice when he got home. And I'm like, practice? You're in a band? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, really? I didn't know that. And he's just like, what's the band? And he's just like, I was in a hardcore band back in the day called the Gorilla Biscuits. I'm like, huh. All right, cool. I had no idea. Like, I didn't know. It wasn't until years later that, with the resurgence of all that, when they opened Lotus and all these fucking hardcore kids were hanging out.
That's right. You guys worked at fucking
at Cliff's
place
for 1 year. Too. We put in 1 year there, and that's where I apprenticed. But it was funny because it was almost embarrassing. I mean, it wasn't. I really didn't give a fuck one way or the other. It's like, you do you, I do me. I don't really fucking care. I still don't like. Still not a real big fan of that music. You know, there's certain bands that I've grown to like, but for the most part, I don't really care one way or the other. But I think maybe that's probably why we got along for a while, you know, so well, because I didn't really give a shit and I didn't buy into, you know, any of that stuff, whatever, you know. But that's a whole nother fucking shit show. Yeah, so like I said, like that music never really had a lot to do with my growing up and my upbringing for the most part, you know. So, how did you end up? How did you end up? We'll fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
You end up in Charlotte. And you end up working at Ace. Who was the original owner at Ace?
Nick Hughes, who is not real. I don't guess he's tattooed in years.
He had. I'm not gonna. I don't want you to get into his history, but that was a pretty interesting guy to work for.
Oh yeah, it was hilarious to work with him. He was an Australian-born. Man, left Australia around 21, 22, went and joined the Foreign Legion, and, you know, like, just, you know, it's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go see the world, and I'm gonna get away from Australia and all this shit. I'm gonna reinvent myself, and after 5 years in the Legion, he started touring, he started doing security work, and he had done everything from, like, Russian dignitaries to getting into the art or the music community. He was working with a bunch of hair bands, and he met John Rainey, who works here in Charlotte. And John toured with. He used to tattoo like a bunch of hair metal bands. Like at the time, I'm pretty sure that Nick was working with Warrant. And he was tattooing Warrant. Like, he'd get on their bus with him and go on tour and fucking, you know, he loves to tell those stories. Or, like, John loves to tell those stories about riding around with those guys and tattooing all the band guys.
I mean, that's pretty...
And it was, you know, that was his day.
Yeah, that's pretty glorious.
But, you know, he was out partying and playing the Rockstar tattoo game. While Nick was, you know, he was making sure the security shit was done. But he had learned to tattoo for a little while, had learned from a guy named Tony Bennett and on the Isle of Wight, and, you know, got a back piece from Ron Ackers, and, you know,
That's fucking legit too.
He had the right crew to impart some fucking wisdom to him. And so he meets John, and John's like, well, I got a shop, brother. If you want to fucking come in, you're welcome anytime. And he showed up here, and he ended up taking root. He wanted to get off the road for a while. You know, it was a border town next to South Carolina. They were making bank tattooing, and Colin LaRock was working with him. Greg Fritz, Mike Chauvin, Chad Stewart, and John got ill with the way this shit was going down one day, and they were being smart asses to him, and he told them they were fired, and they were like, okay, cool. We went across the street and opened up Ace.
Oh shit, okay.
And it was like, yeah, cool, you fired us, great opportunity for us. So they went next door and they fucking, they went down the street and they opened up Ace in '96. So they had some lineup changes, but it was still Colin and Chad by the time I moved to North Carolina, moved to North Carolina, and I was working in Gastonia. Chad eventually moved to Denver, and when he did, that opened up a space. And Colin hit me up and was like, "Dude, I want you here with me. You know, like there's some tattooers in town, but I think you got some hunger for it. You got what I want here with me. So get your ass over here." And eventually I did. And so I was the first to leave Randy's at that point. Rex and I had been there Rex had been there over 2 years. I'd been there just under 2 years, and we had talked Randy into hiring Chris Stewart. And by the time I was on my way out of there, you know, Chris was just getting his skin in the game, getting his teeth good and pointy. He's doing some tattoos, you know, trying to get he didn't have his style yet as much as, you know, as he eventually would.
Right.
But he's doing walk-ins, and we worked at a heavy rotation shop where the business was there. We were making good money. We were making a lot of tattoos, and you know, working with Randy, he had a lot to learn from, you know, because he had been around it for a long time. He had a good library, which was a big deal. You know, compared to what was available, you know, he had 20 books or something. Yeah, that was a big deal back then.
Well, dude, that was the thing. I've often said, it's like you know, back then you were measured. Your talent was measured by the size of your library, almost. Yeah. You know.
Oh, when you were talking about doing the podcast, you were going to come down here. I thought about recreating that Danzig video where he goes and just shows off his library.
Oh,
you remember that old VHS from like '89 or something?
No, I don't.
I have many books, and it's like 20 books, several books on the occult.
Yeah, I mean, even now it's like, you know, it's funny. I can't say I crack those books as much as although every now and again I go through a thing where it's like, oh, I remember this book had a couple of images like this that I might be able to use. And again, I think, you know, like a lot of what's happened in my life and the rest of the world is, you know, we've gotten lazy in the sense that it's just easier. I mean, shit, you can use your phone to pull most of the reference you want to pull now, you know?
Dude, I love not using it though.
No,
because nobody knows where the fuck it's coming from, you know?
Yeah. Like they have to have a better idea of, you know, it's like, oh, you know, this existed before, you know, somebody fucking uploaded it online, you know?
Yeah, dude, so. I still got all the 3-ring binders full of fucking shit that I saved in the late 90s. You know,
so that
97,
I remember,
even before that, in like 96 when I was going down.
That, like when you'd sit down, you'd pull out these 3-ring binders and you'd pull out images. You had like trading cards, you had photo references, all kinds of references, and just sit down with that in your fucking lap and just pull stuff together from that and have that in front of you as you were getting ready to draw on somebody or whatever, you know.
Dude, I had such a way about that shit, man, where like I would take, you know, I would be hesitant to take pictures of other people's tattoos sometimes because I didn't want to do that. Like I didn't want to steal like that, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's a lady here in town that had a bunch. She used to live in San Francisco, and she has a bunch of work from all of the 222 guys and the Tattoo City guys, and she had this mermaid from Chris Kahn, and it had these finger waves that were just sporadically on the sides of it, and they were just done in blue, like just blue lines, finger waves, just real dainty beside it, and like every time I would see her, I would go like, "Can I see that tattoo?" And I would not allow myself to take a picture of it. If I would ask her, she'd be like, "Sure," but I was like, "Nah, I don't want to know what it is. I want my memory of what it is to shape how I make something like it."
Well, I think
that was important for me, because that way I wasn't gonna fucking just draw that same thing over again. I was gonna have flailing attempts at trying to do it, but they were going to at least have my hand to it, and nobody was going to accuse me of it. And if I kept working, then I'd figure out a way to make something. Every time I'd see hers, I'd be like, nope, don't know how to do it yet, and then I'd go back to it, you know?
See, that's my trick for myself was working off of photocopies, just really horrible photocopies.
Yeah.
Of like nudes and stuff like that, stuff from porn magazines and crappy shit like that, and between a horrible photograph, because I mean, this is, again, we're going back to like early 90s where photocopy technology was far from what it is today.
Oh, dude, I remember seeing your flash or seeing tattoos you did, and I was like, oh, that's from the Playboy Special Edition, this thing, because I knew all that stuff too. You know, that was the reference source.
Yeah, and again, back in the day, man, I'd go to every convention. I'd have a fucking duffel bag full of porn.
Oh, I remember you talking about having trouble in Japan, or you were worried, or did you get in trouble?
No, I did get in trouble, because what happened was, again, always traveled with, because all I got to do was, all I did was pen ups and, you know, dirty shit and stuff, and I was going to Japan. I knew there was an issue with nudity and porno there, and I thought I had pulled everything out of my carry-on, and they went through my shit, and they found my portfolio of tattoos, they found my sketchbook, and then they found a fucking porno, and they were like, no, back then, this is 2000, excuse me, this is 1990, is it 99? I don't remember shit, and the guy's like, no, you can't have this here, you can't have this here, and I'm like, oh shit, I had no idea, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was in there, so they watch me throw it away. And then I come back, and then they pull out my sketchbook, they pull out my photo album, and they're like, "This, no good." And I'm like, "Dude, this is my art. Like, I'm trying to get it past this guy. Like, this is my art. I'm not throwing this away." And thank goodness they let me through with my portfolio and my sketchbook. But it freaked me the fuck out, dude. It was horrible. And then I get there, and they bring me to a couple of bookstores and shit, and they had some fucking weird, filthy, crazy shit. I'm like, whatever, dude. How is that cool, So,
That's great.
But yeah, I think even till this day, I mean, if you look at my stories on Instagram, I mean, I still use a lot of photo reference, and whatnot.
I do all the time.
If I can photograph stuff myself, not so much the female figure stuff, because it's a lot more involved, I think. I've made up tons of files and whatnot of snapshots online and whatnot, but to me, I still try to keep it, the images lighter. You can't really distort them to that degree, but like you could back in the day with just making a bad photocopy of something, But yeah, I try to just use that as my quick little sketch or something, So now, as far as the art end of things, let's go into a quick little thing. How did you end up with fucking Ace?
Okay, so I worked for Nick for 4 years. So that puts me 99 to 2003. He bought the building that we were in. He owner financed it from the old lady that owned the building. He had rented the upstairs for his apartment to live in for a long time before he had it as a shop.
And this is when Ace was on the main drag.
Yeah, this was on Central Avenue, 1525 Central. And so he talked her out of the building. She owner financed it, and then he was able to buy her out proper. Then he was in a mad dash to sell it. Dumb move. In my opinion, considering how much that real estate became worth later.
Well, let me ask you a question. Considering how crazy fucking Charlotte, it's off subject, but how crazy Charlotte is, did you see that happening? Did you see that Charlotte was going to turn into this?
Do you not fucking think I would own that building if I had any fucking inclination?
That's my point.
It never fucking occurred to me.
This city is fucking insane. I've known you for over 20 years. And
You've known me for over 25 years.
Yeah, but it's the amount of building and craziness that's here. It blows my. Every time I come down here, they've started a new building.
Well, we've got the banks. We've got major banks that use this as their major hub. We're like a major hub of U.S. Air. We are also have all the NASCAR shit, both the company and the drivers, and all the manufacturing for all the stuff that they can do here for the drivers. And we have multiple professional and semi-professional sports teams. There's just fucking money here.
Yeah.
So, we've become one of those destination points of hey, I've got this degree. Where do I go to fucking cash in on it? I'm going to go to Charlotte. This is a place to move. And you could still buy a house reasonably, a few years ago, and now the inventory of homes is hurting for certain.
Well, that's everywhere in the world or in the country
but
right
now. If you were smart enough to get in, like now business property is fucking few and far between. It's real hard to come by. And I got my home, but I don't own a building for my business.
Right.
But so he wanted to sell the building. Never occurred to me to buy the building, and then as he found somebody that was ready to buy it, he's like, okay, so I'm going to be selling this building. We got to be out of here by June 1st or June 30th. I'm gonna have some money. I can start another place. What's your long term? Do you want me to like buy? Do you want me to open another place? Do you getting squirrely and you want to do your own thing? Do you want to do something together?
Pretty understanding of him.
And because he wanted to get into some private detective shit. He wanted to get near the water. He wanted to move to Wilmington or somewhere like that. And he's like, so what's your long range? And I was like, I don't fucking know. Like I just started getting my legs underneath me to travel with tattooing. I had been as far west as Austin. I'd worked the Austin show. I'd worked Paul Booth shows. I worked Richmond. I'd worked Wilkes-Barre. I'd done guest spots up at your shop. I was starting to get my legs, so I was, but I just didn't think about owning a shop yet. So I was like, I don't know, maybe we should do something together. Because that was like my like weak-minded way of being safe. And then I found a building for us, and when I was like, all right, let's, we could put a sink here, we could do this, we could do that. And he immediately was like, well, why do we want to do that? Why wouldn't we just do it this way? I was like, dude, because we got this opportunity. Why do we want to shortchange what we got a possibility of doing?
Let's make it better, yeah.
And at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna like, how much? What do you want for the business? And I just bought him out.
Oh shit, okay.
And it never occurred to me to buy that building though, shamefully.
Yeah,
and it was just because I didn't come from that brain, like my dad. He didn't teach me things by telling me things. He taught me things by doing it. And it never occurred to me that he owned all the buildings that we ever did anything in. I was like, oh, didn't figure that out for like 10 or 20 more years.
Well, it is kind of funny that your dad wouldn't have tried to kind of get you more in line with like that kind of a mentality.
Dude, I was so hungry to learn from him that he didn't really have to teach me much because I was soaking it in and doing it.
Right.
So then when, if I asked him something, he'd answer me, of course, but it was just not in my brain waves to think like, oh, I should fucking buy this building. Yeah. He sold that building for $350,000.
Oh god, that building would go for like well over $1 million now.
It'd go for well over $1 million now, yeah. And if I owned it, I'd fucking paid it off already. I'd own it outright.
Did we burn out your compressor?
Is it not?
Yeah, it's not kicking back on. Oh, it's hot. It's hot.
That sounds about right. I'm done with this for now anyway. I'm good with that. It'll cool down. How you coming over there? What are you even working on? I haven't even seen you working on.
So what we should do is try to explain what we're doing here. So basically, the way I paint, this is the educational part of the of the program. The way I normally paint is I'll lay out a drawing. This is on I believe it's not Artigan paper. It's like from Strathmore, I believe. It's almost like a Bristol, but it's a colored Bristol. So I'll make a transfer. This is my reference. My sketch, which was done on the iPad. So basically what I'll do is I'll lay it out. A lot of times I'll put down, what's the matter?
Oh, nothing.
Can I get like a shitty brush that I can clean this out with?
What you want?
And a lot of times, just a crappy brush, like something small, nothing too big. And what I'll do is I transfer a pencil or with a Sarrel paper, did some quick little line work. I'll go back over this. Normally I'll have some pencil work underneath this, but I didn't because it was so close. Did some alcohol marker work. Just a quick little layout. What I'm doing now is I've also not really ever done this. Is the first time I've worked with this stuff. It's Liquitex ink. Normally I use this stuff, this FW liquid acrylic, which is more opaque. This is transparent. So I'm laying out my base tones on this. What I'll probably end up doing is going back into this with colored pencil, Prismacolor pencils, bringing out my dark tones and bringing up my highlights. I'll go back in with probably liquid acrylic to go back over this yellow, and that'll be with a paintbrush. And then I'll probably go back over my line work with black acrylic in certain key areas or whatever. So, but yeah, that's basically how I work a lot of this kind of stuff. This is super transparent, just building and building and building, and then most of my opaques will be done with
with acrylic and colored pencils. I'll post something about it eventually. You know, what are you working on?
Well, I had this fucking idea for doing this because I hassle you all the time about being so kept by the digital artwork, you know, and not that it's not practical, not that there's not good sides to it. I totally have an appreciation for the artwork created by them, or on them, not by them, but on them. But, you know, like, I want to see the stuff that I was attracted to of your work from the beginning more than anything, because I don't collect digital work. I collect actual art made by hand. And I've been collecting more and more work lately because I'm in the middle of moving to a new shop. And I've been buying a lot of work, you know, from friends, colleagues, heroes, fucking ne'er-do-wells all abound.
That is something that needs to be said. The amount of art this motherfucker owns is insane. Like, the stuff that's hanging on his walls between his shop and his house is pretty impressive. But the amount of work that he's just got
the archive right now that nobody's seen yet.
It's just incredible. Like, when his shop opens up, a trip to Charlotte should be on everybody's agenda, because that shop is just going to be an amazing, and it's not I think what I like about it the most is it's not your typical tattoo shop stuff. It's really like just incredible stuff, like just amazing, absolutely incredible shit. And it's not your typical old school, just tattoo flash, whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the quality of the art and the amount of art, you know what I mean? And or it's not the amount, but the how different everything is. Just it's the variety is just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. You're one of the only people that's even got some sneak peeks of it in person.
Yeah, mainly because I get to come out here and just hang out and check shit out, you know.
Yeah. But so this is more of a selfish fucking thing for me, where I'm like, I'm not gonna buy any shit from you if you're fucking doing shit digitally, because I mean, I'll just wait for somebody to pirate, and then I can buy it way cheaper from Etsy when somebody steals it from you.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean,
I want to own original art where I can pay somebody with cash money that I earned, and I can be like, here's some fucking money. Now go make more art. Go buy some art supplies.
I have said that myself. I stopped buying prints. I don't want prints.
It's not that there's no prints that I value.
Right. No, agree. I'm not taking a shot at that. I'm just saying.
Not. I mean, but I don't have room. I don't have room for it.
Well, yeah. I mean,
and at this point, you know, what the fuck am I going to pay more to frame something than I pay for the artwork that I'm putting in it?
Dude, do you realize, so years ago I bought a painting from Amber Carr. And Amber, if anybody doesn't know, is a tremendous artist from Florida. Originally from New York.
She's pretty damn good.
She's amazing.
There's an original sitting behind you or beside you.
Oh, yeah, the underpainting. And I remember getting a painting from her, and it was at a bar. It was a bargain. Like, I don't know if she hooked me up or whatever, but it's in a beautiful painting. It cost me more to frame than it cost me for the painting, and that to me, dude, it bothered the shit out of me, because I don't think
that's another thing altogether to get into that.
Oh, again, framing it can make or break a painting, but by the same token,
absolutely makes it.
By the same token, it bothers the shit out of me that's what it. To me, I would just rather, I want to appreciate the art, but I do agree. A great piece of framing can really do something.
Yeah, but like I always go overboard with the frame. Well, I'm not overboard necessarily, but I always go full bore with the framing. And more typically than not, on my original stuff, I'm gonna have it framed. You know, like. I rarely sell stuff that's not framed. Shit, I rarely sell stuff. But when I do, it's usually going to be framed. And either it's going to be with some really fucking cool shit that I found at like Restore or Value Village or some pawn place.
Just see what you got in the fucking room over there. You have a shit ton of fucking frames just sitting over there.
Yeah. Yeah, but so I have stuff that I buy like that, but then I also do stuff where I go to a local guy named Dave Freres at Living Room, and he and I, man, we spent some time framing some shit for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And but I'm not going to frame something that's not really valuable to me. That's some kind of print. If it's not really valuable, if it's something signed by somebody that I can't get something original from rather,
Well, again,
then somebody that's dead that's got a signature on it.
Dead or just people that
like,
we appreciated and admired back in the day that have
something
now
that's
blown up.
hand fucking embellished to me, like that kind of thing. Of course, there's reasons to have things that are not original artwork, but in the large scale, like I want the original artwork. Because I have this extreme value of it, like in my brain, like that's the thing that, like, some people give a shit about shoes. They buy a bunch of shoes, they fucking might wear them once, and they put them in a closet, and then they talk to their fucking shoe buddies about it. And that's awesome. I ain't hating on that. There's people that like comic books and old records and new records or fucking guitars, and I mean, I have all of those vices. I like those things. But when it comes to living by the sword, dying by the sword, I make art. I have a respect for art. I want to promote the love and the value of it. And I figure the best way to do it is support those that are making it.
No, that's amazing.
Not, leaving out the fact that I used to own a gallery for fucking 7.5 years.
Well,
and I was showing art, brand new fucking art shows every month for 7.5 years. So I got some skin in the game, I have this love of it, and I don't want to be one of those people that makes art and then doesn't support it, The same as I don't want to be a musician that expects everybody to come to my show, but I'm never going to go to theirs.
Well, so do you want to talk about your entrepreneurial fucking
I can
tendencies and so after
tendencies? Is that what they are?
Well, I mean, it's not a tendency. It's an actual like. I mean, it became a job, dude. You
it was my fucking.
You opened up a gallery bar,
mm-hmm.
which is not for nothing. I mean, either one of those on their own would be difficult. Together, honestly, and looking back on it, I thought it was a fucking home run. How could you possibly go wrong? Booze and art. But I also believe we live in a fickle world where it's hard to make something stick.
When it really changed, we did, like, the first couple of years were impossible. Then we hit a stride and we did good for a while, and then it started going downhill again. And the reason it started going downhill, in my eyes, because of where I saw people going after that, is we had craft beer, we had wine, but we didn't have food, we didn't have liquor. So there was already those people that wanted those two things. But then we lost the edge on the craft beer because there was a fucking brewery opening every 10 minutes. So we didn't have that specialty anymore. And when we didn't have that specialty, that hurt us really bad. And we just, I had some management situations, like the help that I had shifted, and then my manager got cancer, and that put her not being able to really manage the things that were going on. I had some lifestyle changes where I was traveling out back and forth out of the state a lot, and I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And my girlfriend at the time she had a second business, I had a second business, and both of them were getting in the way of us having time together. So it was like, what would be great is if we both got rid of both of these fucking things.
Yeah.
And we did, and then we were like, that was fucking great. Thanks for giving me the courage to do that. Thanks for giving me the courage to do that.
How long so the place was called 22?
Place was called 22. It was open for 7.5 years. But it took me a year and a half to get it open, so it was almost a decade of my life.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. That's amazing.
Now that it's gone, I really hoped somebody was going to keep the spirit alive, and I was hoping I was going to be able to pass the torch, that somebody wanted to do it and could see the potential. And, I didn't want somebody to come and try to do it and fail. I didn't want I wanted somebody to come and do it better than I did because I wanted to keep supporting. I mean, hell, I wanted to keep doing it. But it was just too fucking much.
Well, the difficulty of running a business like that, I mean, just in general, I mean, like I said, running either one of those businesses, a bar or a gallery, is an uphill battle. You know what I mean? And then to combine them, you would think that one would definitely help the other. But again, I think you need to have, you need money. And if the place isn't making it, you need to figure out how to bring that in. Obviously.
Well, here's I never made any money there. I never paid myself one time from there. I paid all of the loans off out of my pocket. That money that I made tattooing. So like even when I sold artwork, I didn't cash that money out. If I ever had artwork that was in there. I didn't even take that. There was a time or two where somebody paid me cash in hand, and then I was like, all right, well, I'll put that in my pocket. But like I didn't pay myself out of that place, and because I knew that I needed that money to be there so that it could be open, so that it could stay open.
Well, it becomes like a labor of love at that
and
point.
Yeah, but it was worth it to me. Like I was meeting artists all the time. I was getting to see cool shit go down, and I just fucking dug it.
Well, you were really good about too, like really working with communities, like working with the tattoo community, working with the skateboard community, working with like local artists. You had a ton of local artists working, showing stuff in the gallery. I mean,
yeah, I met so many people. I was so inspired too, like every month I had different artwork in my hand, and some of it was stuff that was similar to things that I'd done in my past, and sometimes it was like, hey, let's do a textile show, and I'd have a bunch of felting or fucking cross stitch and shit like that. I was like, man, I've never done anything like this. It didn't make me want to do it, but it made me have like a completely different respect for it.
It opens your eyes to a scene and a style of thing that you don't know anything about.
Yeah, I mean, like the photographers. A guy like Jeff Howlett. Like I met Jeff Howlett back in those days, and he and I are still good friends now, and hey, we were talking about this just a few weeks ago. I tattooed him, and he was doing photographs at Chris Stewart's reopening of the old shop that we used to work at.
Right.
And he was talking about like the shows that he had been a part of there and how he met different artists there. It was just like a hub, It was a real powerful time in the neighborhood, and like that is something that it contributed to a lot of people in a way that I never could just doing tattoos. Even as much as like I had friends that their first date night was in my place. Like, oh, I met them at your bar. So it was like all kind of fucking different things that were really fucking visceral in the power that they had. And that's cool to I mean, it's a cool thing about tattooing that we have something that people can hold on to and glance back at. And, sometimes they might want to cover it up, but sometimes it may be the thing that bonds them together with another human being, or, maybe it's the thing that fucking gets them fired from a job they don't really fucking need.
I mean, dude, even like, with me personally, I mean, we talked about this earlier, having gotten tattooed by Cap Zumsky, you know what I mean? Like, it changed everything in the way of that I do things. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The conversation that we had was tremendous. It was great. It's something I remember till this day. Yeah. My relationship with Mike fucking Ledger. You know what I mean? Like he did my other forearm, and it's just like again, it changed everything for me. And again, when we lost Mike this past year, and it's like,
the anniversary of Cap was just a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week.
Yeah, it's a shit show, man. It fucking blows. But those are people and things that I'm never going to forget. Those are times that I hope to never forget.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's tremendous. I mean, I think that's something like tattooing is something that affects everybody to a degree. Art in itself has that effect, I believe. I think tattooing is a bit more of a visceral version of an art collector. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like something can move you in a way that
you're gonna feel it. It leaves a mark that you truly fucking feel. You know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you know, like I was really proud to be a part of that, and I understand the value of it in a way that I didn't understand before. And the collector side of it, you know, same thing. Like I learned a lot about us as artists through those moments. Like the first year, you know, the second show we ever had. We had this group show. I'm standing there with this guy that I already knew. I'd never tattooed him, but he had gotten tattooed at the shop by another artist, a guy named Nathaniel Lancaster, and he does some paintings for this restaurant chain that me and Matt Hooker work with sometimes. Like, so we still see each other, you know, fairly regularly, and he was there and he was checking out some artwork. He had some artwork on display, and he's looking at this piece of artwork, and he's like, "Man, I really fucking love that artwork, man." I was like, "We should buy it." And he just kind of changes his tune, and he's like, "You know something crazy? Guess not." He's like, "I've never bought a piece of original artwork." This guy's like 35 years old at the time.
Well, that's
and I was like this guy was fucking employed as an artist for like a long time. Like, he graduated college, he moved out to LA, he was just working as an artist. And I was like, "Really?" And he goes, "Don't get me wrong, I've got a lot of artwork. Like, I've traded a lot of artwork with people." He's like, "But I'm a fucking broke artist, you know? I don't have money to do that shit." And he's like, "I've got original artwork, but I've never been at a gallery and bought a piece of artwork." I was like, "Well, here's your fucking chance, man. Fucking master your own fucking destiny right now."
Like the introduction.
And like, it's a fucking $125, dude. Fucking have at it. And he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna fucking do that." And he bought his first piece of artwork from a gallery. You know, whether maybe if it was my ragtag bullshit or not, he bought it from a gallery, and that artist got a cut of it, and I got a cut of it. Was able to keep the doors open a little bit longer, and you know, he felt good about what he was doing, and that was the fucking whole reason we were there. But it made an impact on me because I was like, man, there's a lot of artists that don't collect art. Maybe because they're broke, or maybe because they're busy buying fucking tennis shoes, or doing drugs, or whatever the fuck it is that they do.
I think, honestly, it's more about the money. I think it's more about the fact that, while I think most people want to give back to the little things that, you know, they themselves put out there, a lot of people just simply can't afford it. I don't think they can make that happen. I don't think it's something.
I guarantee you, there's something they spend fucking money on that they could not. Whether it's fucking shoes.
Well, let me ask you a question. How do you feel about fucking tattooers with no fucking tattoos?
Well, you know, I wouldn't.
I was gonna say,
I wouldn't. I always say it this way. This is always my analogy. I wouldn't go to a dentist with no teeth.
Good point.
Now, a dentist with fake teeth is one thing. You're like, well, they've modified, they've done whatever, but they didn't have teeth at all. I'd be like,
yeah, that's maybe not a good move.
Weird choice.
Well, how important?
But you know, like it took me a while to commit to getting tattooed. So I'll give people the grace.
How long did you tattoo before you?
Oh, I had tattoos before I.
You said you had 3 before you started.
I had 3 when I probably had 3 before I ever started tattooing. And then I tattooed for a while, and then I got, like, as soon as I started working at that shop, I got tattooed by my boss. Rob was in town. He was only in town once in the whole time that I worked. I worked for 7 months, and I only met him that one time. And I met him many years later in, like, Detroit or something at a convention. But, like, he and I didn't have, like, a real relationship or anything like that. But he did these tattoos on my wrist, which were small, you know, like, it weren't big or fucking big deal either. I got my next tattoo work was in '97 when I went down. I got another session from Shay on the Octopus. I got tattooed by Emerson Forth that weekend.
Oh shit! You got tattooed by Emerson.
Yeah, I got tattooed by Emerson that weekend. He did a piece on the back of my calf, And dear Lord, it was the most painful thing I'd ever endured at the time.
Yeah, Emerson looked like a beast when he fucking tattooed. I remember I got to work. My introduction to Emerson was back in like the mid '90s with Martin Lacasse.
This was right after that.
Lancaster back then.
Oh,
and,
yeah. Marty Ferrari. He wasn't even
nothing-
Marty Ferrari yet.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I remember going to conventions and just working my ass, like putting my head down, working my ass off, and then going to shows with Martin, Emerson, and Greg Christian, and being, they opened up the fun part of tattooing, like hanging out at the end of the night, like sitting. I remember sitting in the lobby. It wasn't Miami. I can't remember where we were, but sitting in the lobby of the hotel and somebody bringing back Crystal Burgers. And just sitting there eating Crystal Burgers at like fucking 3:30 in the morning because that was the only fucking place that was open, and just shooting the shit till like the fucking wee hours, and it was amazing. It was just it was just so much fun to hang out with those fucking guys, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, those were times, man. They were fucking great.
Yeah, so I mean, agreed. Like, I think that the idea of, I think it's also like a bit of a rite of passage when it comes to your clientele. I mean, you know, you're tattooing for a living. You know, you should kind of know what you're doing to people. You know what I mean? I think that's a big deal.
It's one of the reasons why I still enjoy getting tattooed, even though I hate getting tattooed. I'm not great at it. You know, I don't have the fortitude that I may have had when I was younger. Not that I was ever really great at it, but you know, I fucking despise it as much as anybody does.
Redoing your arm was a fucking chore and a half.
Yeah, but I don't blame that on me or you.
Huh? I'm blaming it on you.
Oh, I'm not blaming either of us.
Oh no, you need to blame yourself because that was fucking.
Nah, that was all on Rumplements.
That was. Dude, that was. All I remember is.
Oh, dude, I hated it.
We were in
I
it
hated
for like
it
an
from my
hour
whole
and a
heart,
half,
Joe.
2 hours, and I was so cracked. And one of your was it a client that came in? It wasn't Chad, right? Chad wasn't here at that time. But someone walked in and you had poured yourself some Rumplements, and he looked at you and he's like, "You gonna share that?" And he poured him a glass, you poured him a cup, and then you looked at me, and I hadn't been drinking at that point, and I'm just like, you know what, man? Fuck it, bring it. And I think we killed that whole bottle of Rumplements.
I'm sure we did.
In that session.
Yeah, it doesn't help. It doesn't help a bit.
No, by the way, kids, don't drink and fucking get tattooed. Doesn't help.
Nah, it doesn't help.
I mean, I'm not going to say I've never drank and gotten tattooed, but it technically doesn't help.
Nah, it didn't help. But it was funny. And minty.
It
smelled great.
And minty. Yeah, it definitely made for an interesting fucking session, to say the very least.
I was pretty good the very last session. I was sober then.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we did the fucking underside of my arm, which
Yeah.
was inarguably the fucking more sensitive part of all that shit.
Most
I did that
certainly.
part.
Yeah, most certainly.
Did that part. Very somber and sober. Very fucking.
So,
But no, you know, we were talking about the, you know, just the art side, the collector side, you know, one of the other things that kind of made me want to push your hand on this with making you make some artwork too, is just thinking about like how for a lot of people tattooing is a fucking part-time job now, because the fucking business is hurt so bad by the economy and by the saturation and by the, you know, the public's like inability to show up for their fucking appointments and the distractions that everybody gets from having a fucking computer in their pockets, and you know, it's like people making excuses by telling you how booked you are. Oh, dude, I'd love to get tattooed by you, but man, you just, you know, you're so busy. Like,
But
I'm
again-
not actually. I could tattoo you fucking tomorrow.
I think that's what cracks the shit out of me personally, is the fact that, you know, individuals literally are a thumb touch away from knowing everything about your schedule.
Right?
Literally, you know what I mean?
Right.
And yet they just assume that, oh, you're probably booked out. And I'm like, no.
Well, it's like they're out. You know, they're out from doing the thing they don't want to do. Like,
Well, everybody wants to be down until they actually are asked to be down. And then it turns into, oh, you do have time. Oh, I can get tattooed. oh, I don't think I want to get tattooed no more. But instead of just telling you that and just being like, yeah, dude, I can't, times are tight, whatever. They just, they either ghost you or they come up with some, it's like, oh, I just assumed you were super busy, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's, it just makes me feel bad because now I feel like I've not done my job by informing you properly, I guess. You know what I mean? So,
But so like I think about one character who is near and dear to my heart with his artwork. I mentioned his name already. That he combated his desire to get it. It was a desire for him to get away from tattooing instead of a need to supplement his income a different way, like a lot of people have to now. But Chris Kahn, he's like, fuck it, I'm done tattooing. It's beat me up to a point where I'm not willing to do this anymore. I'm just gonna fucking be a fine artist. I'm gonna make paintings, and he became a fucking like this guy that everybody wished they would have got tattooed by, and then they couldn't. And then when he decided to come out of retirement and do some tattoos, then everybody's like, oh fuck, Chris is doing tattoos again. And then he disappeared again, and then he started again and disappeared again. But he, he reinvented himself both as a painter and as a tattooer time and time again. And people want both of those things from him now. And, they have an ability to get them from him, if they're willing to invest in like getting, paying attention to when those things are available, when he's got an original available, or when he's got prints available, or when he's got time available.
I think that's a really important thing in the sense that knowing what's, having an idea of what's going on in the business, and then when an artist like that does make that move, does kind of step away from one thing, like step away from the tattooing to concentrate on the art, it's nice that people pay attention to that,
Yeah.
I think that, and this is going to sound kind of ghoulish, but I think a lot of things that have happened with artists passing away, horrible shit happening, and like they see the value in what it is that we've been doing, in what it is that has come before them. You know what I mean? Like I remember talking to Corey Miller, and Corey made a comment. Like he's got an amazing collection of shit,
Yeah.
And he made the comment, it's like, man, it's like I like to think that I knew this stuff was going to be worth money, but I didn't fucking know shit. I just picked it up, and now I'm just be like, yeah, well, I knew these machines were going to be something. I knew this flash was going to be something. I knew this. He had no fucking idea. He was just collecting for the sake of collecting. I think that a lot more people now are looking at it from the perspective of, man, these motherfuckers ain't going to be around for long. But the way things are going, man, this stuff's going to be worth some fucking money. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it takes an artist to drop dead for that to fucking happen, unfortunately.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at Ed's stuff. Ed was you could buy an original painting from him 20 years ago in 22 years ago in 2003. I saw that Ed Hardy Bob Roberts show at Track 16.
Yeah.
And dude, that show was like the originals. These are big fucking paintings. They were in the 4,500 to 9,500 range.
Yeah, which is technically nothing.
Dude, 4,500 would get you a color pencil sketch if you could find one.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like, 9 by 12, maybe right. Maybe not even that. And these were full-blown fucking paintings, And it was 20 years ago. And at that point, it was like, ooh, that's fucking high dollar. I got tattooed by Bob that week that I was out there. And I was like, yeah, I got to see the show. And he was kind of fucking disgusted at, like, the things like, I don't know if you ever did you get to know Bob at all?
I didn't get to know him.
But I did get to spend.
I've met Bob on 2 separate occasions, and in both, it was in passing.
Yeah, and I told him, I was like, I was able to get to see the show of yours and Ed Hardy's work. And he's like, yeah, man, fucking those guys. Fucking gallery people. And, I'm just hungry for any fucking thing he's got to offer. And he's like, yeah, I give him these paintings, and they're like, this one's going to sell for $4,500, and this one's going to sell for $7,500. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is that about? I got fucking 3 times as much. There's fucking 200 hours in that painting. And that painting I did in fucking, 50 hours. And they're like, well, yeah, Bob, but this is a $4,500 painting, and this is a $7,500 painting. And he was like, my fuckers.
Well, I
Dude,
mean, again,
you fucking, like, $7,500 would burn a hole in my pocket if I could have any of those fucking things now.
but again, I think it's a completely different animal when it comes to, when you come right down to it, it kind of is a different animal. We're not struggling. We're not starving artists, although we're becoming struggling artists. We're becoming starving artists. There's a lot of tattooers that are phenomenal painters, but I think if it came right down to it and they put their tattoo machines down, they probably would go hungry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the one benefit I think that being a tattooer offers is the fact that as a tattooer you have an income coming in. You know what I mean? You can't begrudge this income. You can't take advantage of this income. You can't look at it as whatever, here today, gone tomorrow, whatever, because it kind of becomes that if you're not careful.
Well, I'll tell you this. The amazing part about painting, and it's the part that's perplexed me, like I can have a painting that I spend who knows how many hours. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I do it in 10 minutes or fucking 10 hours or 100 hours. I get done and I put a price on it, and then people just kind of like stare at it, and then they fucking, they might try to bargain with me, or they might just fucking forget that we were talking about that and fucking change the subject. And then it comes time to do some tattoo work, and I sit down to do the tattoo work, and I do the tattoo work, and then I tell them how much I am an hour beforehand, and then we do however many hours, and then they pay me for it. And It's way more than a painting would be sometimes.
Oh, most certainly.
And then that tattoo, they go out and burn it up in the sun. They fucking maybe they get a fucking accident, get it scratched all to fuck. Maybe they fucking don't like it anymore and they cover it up, or whatever. Maybe their significant other changes and they fucking can't have that tattoo anymore, or they don't want that tattoo anymore. Whatever the fucking case, that tattoo is way more impermanent than a painting. And then they get rid of it, or whatever happens, it's a diminishing return on having a tattoo compared to having a piece of original artwork that does accrue value, that you could sell for a profit, or that you could do something, or you could give it away to somebody for fuck's sake. You could paint over it and use the canvas or the fucking panel that it's on. You could take the frame off of it and reframe fucking something important to you.
Well, so what do you think about the artists that are literally creating art on skin and acting like it is a $15,000 painting that should be hanging on the wall? You know what I mean?
That want the gratitude that they're a fine artist, you mean?
Well,
or
they want the
want
gratitude, and they want the paycheck that comes with the gratitude.
I mean, if they could, I don't hate on anybody for getting more money than me, for having a different process than me, for doing something. And I really try to fucking get away from having much of an opinion about how somebody else conducts their business. Because I think it's all just hilarious. When somebody has this real pious attitude towards their artwork, and they don't realize that they are, they're technicians that are doing something that could evaporate, because of the sun, or get cut off in a fucking chainsaw accident, or have some new character come into the mix that's like, I don't like it, and if you don't get rid of it, then I'm not gonna fucking be with you anymore. Or maybe you're gonna give your life to the Lord, and you can't have these tattoos anymore in my church. Whatever the fuck it is. Whatever the fuck it is. However much they value it, it's got a diminishing return to it. If they can talk their clients into fucking valuing that stuff so that it is babied and cared for and loved and given the most affection it possibly could, then God bless them. I try to get my clients to do that too. I want them to love their tattoo because I love it putting it on. I really value my time with my client, and if anybody can get their client to value it as much as I value putting it on, then that's great. If anybody can convince people that they are a rock star and that that, you know, they're the only person to tattoo them, then good on them, man. I'm not gonna fucking hate on that.
Oh no, I mean I'm not looking at
And
it from
I'm
that
not saying that you were.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I mean, but it's not like I've not been not vocal about, you know, having a bit of an axe to grind with that situation, because we talked about this earlier. There's something to be. Oh, actually, I wasn't talking to you about it. I think I was talking to everybody else. But we were talking about the idea that
everybody else.
Well, you were still tattooing at the time, but I was talking about the fact that, you know, the way I tattoo has changed slightly in the sense that I want my tattoos to age like a tattoo.
Oh,
you know
likewise.
what I mean? Because the idea behind that, the beauty of that is in, you know, 15, you know, years, 20 years, 25 years, you still get to look at something that is aged in a way that it still looks presentable. It still looks good. You know, like my forearms, you know, your arms, you know what I mean? Like, you went for a second coat when we redid your arm back in the day.
But that was multitask. That's a multitask there, though. That wasn't just a second coat. I did ask for some modification in it.
Oh, we added
the finger waves.
Yeah, the black finger waves.
And that was because, you know, like me having such an affection for water, first of all. But, you know, in the initial approach, like, I didn't want anything Japanese-ish. You know, I didn't ask you for finger waves.
Well, also back in the day, I mean, I would have been the wrong person to ask for something Japanese.
Yeah, but when we did my hand, I asked for the silhouetted waves specifically.
Yes, which was your thing. Like, and you had to kind of walk me through the way you wanted it to look.
I think you gave me the pen and told me to draw them on.
Well, because I don't. Well, and again, that's one
which
of those
which was fine.
Well, because when I do finger waves, there's a reason why Civ named it Joey as Japanese, because it doesn't look traditional in any way, shape, or form. Which I'm good at. I mean, I'm good for. I mean, I don't want to be. I mean, while I admire the living fuck out of that stuff, I don't want to be that guy. I'm not that guy. So literally, you're asking me to do these fucking finger waves.
Yeah,
like,
and I was fine with that. You know, like it worked out like I wanted. But then, like the tattoo, we had never done a touch up on it. I remember sitting in Detroit with you after the convention, like probably 6 or 8 years before that. You were sitting to my left, and you looked down at my arm, and you were like, "Man, that magenta really took a shit, didn't it?" And I was like, "What is he talking?" And I looked down, I realized you're eyeballing my arm. I was like, let's fucking touch it up sometime. And then we never did.
I think that was all Danny Fowler.
It was all Danny Fowler in those days.
Yeah, and some of his colors just fell out.
You know? And you know, the magenta, it was just a big sweeping black and big sweeping color. And dude, like the speed that this tattoo went down blew my fucking mind. I'd only been tattooing a couple of years, and it was 99, and dude, like in 4.5 hours, you did every bit of the black work in my whole arm, and I was like, fucking shell shocked. You're like, well, I got some Bactine. If you want to spray some Bactine on it, we can start on the color. And I was just like, I think I got everything I expected to get. You know, this is what I had in the tank. You know, I got some more money and I got more time, but I think this is what I expected to walk out of here with. And I'd never had Bactine used on me, so I didn't even know what that meant. And I was just like, I think I'm done. And I left, you know. And but when we got back into it, it was like, oh, I want to do some finger waves in this as well. And I'm ecstatic about how that worked out. But like all of these waves, all of this stuff, all of the extra black in it, man, it's like this thing's 10 years old now from the rework. And people still see this shit. People still see this shit to this day. And they're like, did you have that redone? They're asking me that 10 years later.
It does blow my mind, like, there's no, for me, and that's, again, why I like the idea of keeping things a bit more traditional versus more of this color realism, artsy kind of stuff, is the fact that it's nice to see something age in a way that, you know, as colors fade, as lines spread, things do, it does it in a way that it doesn't hinder the overall, presence of the tattoo. You know what I mean? Because I love looking at old work just because I want to see where all the faults lie in what I did.
Yeah.
You know, how certain colors sitting next to one another, you know, like how they slowly kind of fucking, you know, separate and fall apart. You know what I mean? Where you've got like pure pigments versus colors with a lot of white in them, where you can see them literally separating over the years. You know, it may take 8 to 10 years. Sometimes it takes less.
Right.
depending on the person's skin tone, you know. But I think it's actually a really it's really amazing to see how certain things age and how certain colors react around other colors depending on the part of the. And a lot of it's got to do with the part of the body as well. Like forearms, like the outside of a forearm is definitely much different than the inside of a forearm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's being a tattooer versus being a tattoo artist is something that gives you that little insight and makes you say, no, don't do that on this part of the body. Do it someplace else.
Yeah. And, you know, like, those kind of things, man, they really do, like, they really do need to be experienced.
Yeah.
You know, like, you need to, like, when I see somebody talking about what they're doing and how great it is compared to what somebody else is doing or has done. Like, you know, new inks are a great example. Oh, this ink's better. Do you have an example that is 10 years old?
Exactly.
Do you have an example that's 20 years old? Don't fucking tell me how great your ink is until it is. You know, I want to see it then. And you know, that's when you're gonna know. You know, when I see somebody that's telling me anything about themselves, you know, like you haven't seen any of your tattoos this old, so you have some hubris.
Yeah.
That may be early. You
Well,
know,
and that's-
it may be a little early for you to be making these fucking bold ass statements about shit, because you might have to eat these words one day.
Well, and I think that's a good place for a good place for a tattooer to be is to not know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you do know, then you stick to your guns.
But it's also a good place for a tattooer to be like ready to experience one of a myriad of different answers. Mm-hmm. You know, like, hey, I got this tattoo on my forearm by this person, and I got this tattoo by that same person on a different body part, and they age differently.
Yes.
You know, but when it's on you specifically, then you know some of the other makeup that happened. Like, oh, during this time I was doing this other thing. I was eating this way. I was exercising this way. I was living at the beach. I was fucking.
Oh, I think
you know, like all the variables. I was doing this thing that I wasn't doing at a different time, or vice versa. I wasn't. You know, I figured out that I was whatever it is. You know more of the variables. You remember how you fucking did it.
Well, I think that's something we know now, especially because we pay a little bit more attention to the overall health of our clients. We pay more attention to ourselves, obviously, you know what I mean, for the most part. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at in the long term as being, that's an important part of getting tattooed. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure that you did stay out of the sun. I mean, how many times have you had a client come in, you know, I mean, it hasn't happened to me in a
How
long
about
time.
this one? Like, oh, you're a diabetic?
Yeah.
Like, I've had that problem before. Like, I had no idea you were a diabetic. Like,
Dude,
well,
worse
here's
is-
why this is healing bad. This is why your lower leg is not doing good, or your foot healed like shit. It's because you got no circulation down here.
Dude, when you have a client come in and they're like, you know, they're kind of brown, you don't think anything of it, you put the stencil on them, you start tattooing them, and as you're wiping, it's just chunks of skin are coming off, you know, because they just got back from some fucking vacation and they're on their second peel. And they didn't bother to tell you
their
that.
skin's rolling up
Yeah,
on your paper
literally.
towel, you know? Those are
Literally,
fucking
dude.
tasty.
I just had a
Thanks,
guy.
pal.
Oh, God. I had a guy the other day. He's a fucking nightmare to tattoo. Super nice guy. But, dude, tattooing this dude, he is red as a fucking beet. He's got really cold. You can tell he just doesn't drink enough water. He does drink. He gets high, whatever. But, dude, red as a motherfucker. And this guy, every time I tattoo him, putting a line in is like punching through fucking leather. Every time he comes back, none of my line work looks black. You know what I mean? I have to stretch. I try to stretch the skin as much as humanly fucking possible. And then on top of that, you know, when he comes back, nothing is saturated the way it should. To this past, I just tattooed him recently. Dude, he was sweating so much. Like, he got up and he walked around. He came back and I'm just about to start tattooing, and the fucking stencil's completely, slightly blurred from fucking that little bit of sweat that's coming off them. I'm like, what the fuck?
So I'm sitting there trying to tattoo. It was like tattooing with an acetate stencil, dude. And powder. I'm like trying not to touch anything and just fucking hammering these lines as quickly as possible to get the fucking lines in there before the entire fucking stencil falls apart and disappears. You know? Absolute fucking nightmare. So we got all the black done. I got half the color done. I'm like, you know what? We're done right now. Because it went up onto his neck and shit. It was a fucking nightmare, dude. Absolute fucking nightmare. So.
Love it. Love that shit.
Oh, fuck that. I don't want to deal with that no more, man.
No,
It's
I
too
don't want
much.
to do that.
It's too much, you know?
But
So.
you know, those are the things that you know, those are experience that you have to have yourself.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
like you can't teach that, because even if you did pre-warn somebody about it, you still you can't explain to somebody that this is how it feels.
No, I think at
and
that
you can't
point,
mimic it.
No, at that point you try to, I think that's one of the things, like, you know, one of the biggest issues I think you have with certain types of tattooers is, you know, when you talk shit about what happens on your day-to-day in a shop, in the back room of a shop, you know, you get a lot of people that are like, you shouldn't be talking bad about your clients, and you shouldn't be doing this, and you shouldn't be that. It's not so much about talking shit. It's more about, like, it is a lot about, you know, like, kind of unburdening yourself, blowing off steam. But at the same time, there's something to be learned in all those things. So when you talk about somebody's skin tone, or how much the motherfucker bled, or the fact that his, you know, like, his breath stinks, or the fucking fact that his blood stinks when he comes in after a cigarette break, you know, all these little things. These are aspects of our business that if you don't talk about, the next time it happens to somebody else, they're going to be like, oh my God, why does this guy's blood smell so bad? You know, why does this guy bleed so much? Why am I fucking wiping off chunks of his fucking skin? Us complaining about these incidents at the end of the fucking day in the back room, while it may come off as being very harsh, you know what I mean? It's kind of a learning thing. It's like class. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, like, I have certainly been in a situation where the learning came from the communication. You know, obviously that's where you learn, but you know, the communication might be with somebody who's a fucking dental hygienist that's got some experience with something, or a fucking nurse, yeah. Or, you know, like they have a completely different take on things. You know, again, like the diabetic thing is something where it's not a thing that comes from somebody's choice. It comes from, oh, this is just a matter of fact. This is fucking science that is causing this to happen. And I need to teach this person a little differently. I need to recommend some different things for them because they are going to have a little harder road to hoe on this thing. So this needs to be a little better for them. And I can make it better if I know this in advance, you know? Like, I've had a boss that wanted us to give A&D ointment to everybody, and that didn't work for everybody. And I was like, dude, I can't give this to anybody anymore because I'd had so many people heal poorly with it. And then I had a guy that couldn't heal with what we were telling him to use, and I was like, maybe you should try ointment. And he tried ointment, and it was fucking perfect for him. Again, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. We're not all the same.
That's where it all comes down to you know, everybody's going to be different. Every little thing is going to be different, and your job is to try to figure out exactly what's the best advice to give to somebody until it's no longer good advice.
But you still need to pay attention. I mean, hell, in my career, Bounty's changed the way they make their paper towels multiple times. Dude, you know, like you can't rely on anything never changing.
Well, I think that's our trade, dude. Very few things are made for us. Like, everything has been bootlegged. It's been pirated from something else. Mm-hmm. So we have to make good with what we got, you know, and that's that. That's all you got.
Yeah.
You know.
And you know, that's been some of the charm, you know. Like, I remember first trying to learn the things that I was learning, and when I made some of my inroads into things, there was you know, Shay and Phil, and Shay helped me learn a little bit about making ink, but you know, I wasn't making ink beside him. I learned what I'd learned, and me and fucking Rex Barnes, we destroyed a kitchen or two. You know, we burned up a blender or 12.
You did your thing with it?
we did what we did, and we made some ink, and we tattooed it into people, and fucking, you know, made some good tattoos out of it. And there was a point where me and Colin Rock were down in Atlanta hanging out with Phil, and Juan Puente was in town, and that was a big part of our motivation for going down at that particular time. We're like, we got to go hang out with Juan down in Atlanta. So we went down, and I'd already been tattooed by Juan. I think Colin had been tattooed by Juan at least once, maybe a couple of times. He had been tattooed at 222 by Jeff, and he had been tattooed by maybe somebody else at 222. I think, nah, maybe not. Anyway, we had some lineage with these guys, and the subject of ink making came up, and Juan was talking about it, and I just straight up asked him, so what's your take on ink? Like, what's your breakdown and your mix? And
you just asked him?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're just like talking. We're talking about making ink, and I was like, so what's your breakdown? What do you like to do? And he just, like, I could see him just, I realized at this moment that maybe this wasn't the time to ask this question. I didn't know, and he kind of looked around like, I don't know if this kid needs to even hear it, I don't know if he even deserves to know any of this information. And he kind of fucking sat silent for a while, and he exhaled and was like, okay. He started imparting a little wisdom on me, By no means was I ready to go open a fucking ink company afterwards, but he at least...
Well, back then, too, it was more about...
This was like 98 or 9. Well, no, it had been like maybe 99, 2000, 2001 at the latest. Probably 2000.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, like, this was stuff that was valued and like...
Well, it was valued and passed on in a way that you had to be down in order to get that knowledge. You couldn't just call up somebody you didn't fucking know that you happen to know makes pigment and be like, hey man, like, I own the shop off the street and I'm thinking about mixing some pigment up. You think you can fucking tell me what your fucking mixture is? What are you using for dispersion? Like, what's the breakdown on that? You really didn't have the opportunity to do that. You know what I mean? Like, we had a guy we worked with back in the day on Long Island who was well versed in a lot of that stuff, did all that shit 'cause he came up in the 70s, So I had some knowledge from what he had told me in passing, and then Corey had some notes that were taken from a couple of people he worked with back in the day, and then I reached out to friends like Angelo and Mike, and at that time we kind of knew Reno and stuff. So we kind of just I'm not gonna get into that. But we kind of made
I don't even know Reno, but I know so many stories.
Yeah, again. But we kind of, with all that stuff, we kind of just hodgepodged our own thing. And we, like I said, I mixed pigment for, I used my own pigments, the stuff that Corey and I did for probably 7 years, I think 8 years before things started to run out. And I was just like, I'm not doing this again.
I think you used some of your pigment on me at least one time.
At one point, probably, yeah, probably.
Maybe the Viking chick that you did on me. You probably don't even remember doing that.
Oh, I remember the one on your rib.
The one small tattoo I have from you.
Yeah, well, you got that. So
that was in the Old Hope.
Yeah, that was the first Hope. Been like probably some powder and some maybe Eternal. That was before I was on the... I think that was before I was on Electric Ink.
It was definitely before Electric. Yeah. Because you were in that old building and you were in that.
I love that fucking little Viking chick.
That's stupid. On you.
That was like a last minute. You just showed up and we fucking.
Yeah.
What were you there for? Was it for the? Was that for the denim jacket show?
It may have been for the denim jacket show. It may have been for one of the other shows. I mean, I travel up there every now and then.
Yeah. Yeah, the old Hope, the original Hope was on a second story.
Because I would come up there and do a guest spot on the way to, like, New York or fucking, you know, like, come back from a show. Like, we'd do a show in Richmond or we'd do a show in Scranton or not Scranton, but Wilkes-Barre. And then it's just like, oh, yeah, I'll go ahead and come up and do a guest spot while we're at it. Or come up for some music or whatever, you know.
Well, let's talk about let's talk about shows, dude. Like, conventions and whatnot. Like, so you were part of the Richmond show way back. Like, you did Richmond before I did.
No.
No, you didn't?
No. Well, no.
I think my first year...
No, because I distinctly remember being at one of the Richmond shows after I'd gotten tattooed by you, and you're like, are you working? And I was like, no, I'm not working.
So
And you're like, why aren't you working? I was like, oh, I can't get a booth in here.
So I remember the first time I did...
The first convention I worked there was 2001.
Oh, God, yeah, then it definitely...
I started going to it in 97. I
So,
started
yeah.
working it in 2001.
So I think maybe it was 96. I was still... I know Dave... Yeah, you know what? It might have been 90... It might have been 96 that I first spoke to Billy and got fucking blown off. I remember...
That story's hilarious. That story's so Billy, too.
It was 95, 96. I remember going... I remember it being told that he was the guy who ran the show and that I needed to talk to him. And I remember walking up to him. It was at the desk, at the front desks. And I walk up to him and I was like, hey, Billy, or I didn't even say Billy. I just said, hey, hi, I'm Joe Capobianco. I just want to introduce myself. I hear this is your convention and I wanted to know what was involved. How can I get a booth for next year? And he literally, I think I might have had my hand out to shake his hand. Well, exactly. I had my hand out to shake his hand.
It's like me asking Juan how to make ink.
Dude, exactly. He looked me up and down.
And get the slow blink and the fucking lip smack.
Didn't say a goddamn word. Just turned around and walked away from me. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, you don't do that. What the fuck, man? Like, I was so mad. But then again, I was like, I didn't know shit, you know? And then shortly after that, I'm walking around the convention and I hadn't sold any flash. I had a armful of flash I was selling. And Dave Atenito comes up to me and he's like, he's telling me how much flash he's just sold. And I'm like, what do you mean you sold flash? And he's like, dude, I sold like almost all my flash. And I was so fucking mad that I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what the fuck? Why can't I sell any flash? So I walked away and I walked up to the next table and it was Mark Fairchild. And the day before, I had asked him if he wanted to look at my flash, and he wouldn't even look at my flash. And I was so mad that I was like, you know what, this motherfucker's at least gonna look. I don't give a fuck if he buys, but he's at least looking through my shit. So I walked up and I threw my stuff on the table, and I said, hey man, you wanna look at some flash? And he looked at me, he looked down, and he saw the first sheet. And he goes, I'll take a look. And I had 3 sets with me. It was 3 sets of 10 or 3 sets of 6. I don't remember. And he's flipping through it, and he's like, huh, this is pretty cool. He's like, can you tattoo like that? And I'm like, I don't know, I think I can. And I pulled my portfolio out. I put it on the table. And he's flipping through it. And like the 3rd or 4th picture is the Betty Page on the jukebox. And he sees that, and he goes, huh. And he literally goes under the counter, pulls up Tattoo Magazine, opens it up, and I had 2 pages, side by side. One had 4 images in it, one had 1. And he went, "This is you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my stuff." He's like, "You want to come to a convention?" And I'm like, "If I can get a booth at it." And he ran the Wilkes-Barre convention, and I'm like,
Love that show
in the
so
Valley,
much.
dude. That show was amazing back in the day.
It was amazing for a period.
And that was,
And
yeah,
it
well,
wasn't.
like anything else in this business.
But damn it, that was a fucking important one for me. It really was.
Oh, it was important for me. It was the very first convention I ever did.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, dude, that show for the first, God, how many fucking years, was tremendous. Especially for the middle of nowhere fucking Pennsylvania, in an area that was fucking frighteningly fucking just shit, you know? That show was, I loved that show back in the day. Absolutely
so
adored that
fun.
show. Absolutely adored that show. You
So
know?
fun.
But yeah, man, that was a great experience. It sucked. I didn't like the idea of being fucking blown off from Billy. But the best part about it was, a year later, not even 8 months later, Billy came up to me at a convention. Because at that point, I started doing a lot of shows. And Billy came up to me and he goes, "You want to do the Richmond show?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I fucking want to do the Richmond show." And I got into the Richmond show the following year. So I want to say maybe the first year I did it was 97. It might have been 96 or 97. I can't
Fucking
remember.
Billy.
You know? But again, dude, that show for me was fucking life-changing, man. You know? I won't say it was the only show for me that was a lot. I think I would say Wilkes-Barre was probably the first one that was really the one that set the bar for me, because I'd never known anything like it, and then it just got better and better and better. And that's when shows were never more than 45 to 75 booths. You know what I mean? And everybody was, handpicked. Everybody was an original, was doing their shit. You had a bunch of artists, like every now and again you'd have somebody hanging flash out or whatever. But for the most part, it was all these amazing fucking artists that were just, really setting the bar for themselves, Doing the Greensboro show, Little John's show back in the day. I mean, how incredible was that? Fucking motherfucker got fucking Philip Lou to come to it. You know what I mean?
Dude, I know. I'm so sad I didn't get tattooed by him back then when he was there that time. I mean, I haven't been tattooed by him now even, But,
yeah, I've never been tattooed by him either.
But man, I guess maybe I appreciate that I still have some mystique from some of these people. I'm still a fanboy at some artists for some reason. I mean, I've talked with Philip. I've had conversations with him, but
be a fanboy?
I've had conversations with him a few times, but not that he would remember.
I don't know. I think you'd be surprised, but yeah.
I've never not considered him, like the top of the heap to use as a I guess a template of sorts, like that guy's approach, the living, breathing, eating, drinking, sleeping it, like all things tattoo.
I think the whole thing with that is just the difference of upbringing. You know what I mean? Being raised by Felix and Loretta, and being around. It's almost like being in an artist community with the amount.
Being raised by Felix and Loretta, and then having fucking like Bill Salmon be your, like one of the next people that fucking takes you and gives you the next fucking crew,
being tossed into the deep end and being sent to fucking
India.
What's his name? Jonathan Shaw.
Oh,
and
fucking
cruising her, and hanging out in Manhattan and doing all that craziness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was young.
Yeah, he was super young.
These days.
Riding BMX bikes through the fire. I mean, I obviously I wasn't there. I just heard the stories, but literally living this amazing life in the fucking. Mid to that would have been what, mid to late 80s. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like him and getting a different like value of how to deal with the body from somebody like Bill, who had just like such a different vision. Yeah. Of like size and scope. Like, no, back up from it, make it bigger. Like, that kind of thing is just so fucking cool.
Well, that was the thing, man. Like, again, like getting tattooed by Ledger, who was heavily influenced by fucking by Philip. You know what I mean?
Oh, and absolutely.
That was one of those things. Like, you're looking at parts of the body as you're not just looking to cover the upper portion of an arm. You're looking to fill up that fucking arm.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I had strong influences that I started out with. My friends in Atlanta, and then by proxy, them moving. Eventually Phil moved to Miami too. He worked down there for a while.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, he was down there for a number of years. And my sister was down there for a number. She was down there like five.
You were saying that earlier.
5 years. Maybe 6 or 7. Yeah, like 5, I think. So, I had like this whole crew of people that like when I got to know Emerson, it was through my sister. I got to know Jason Eisenberg through that time. Like, he knew my sister. And he knew Shay, but he also knew, ended up being friends, had known and was friends with with Billy, who my sister eventually married, long after she and Shay split up, so I knew Ami, I knew, of quite a few people through my sister, not through tattooing. You know, she was really close with Ken and Michelle.
Right.
So, you know, likewise getting to know Tony Olivas. Like when I first met Tony, I introduced myself to him the day after I got the color work on this left arm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I hadn't met him yet. This was after, you know, like, cause you were working the convention, and I had to get back home to work at Randy's.
This was Atlanta?
This was '99 in May in Atlanta, and so I went up to. I had my portfolio with me because that's what you used to do. You used to shake people's hands, and you used to carry your fucking hardbound portfolio of photographs that were taken with film.
Portfolio is important. You're fucking wrong.
You know, you take this thing, has a bunch of film photos that you took, and then you take it to somebody, and they know what it's there for, and they may not want to look at it, but they might look at it, and I'm standing there like, hey, Tony, my name's Rodney. I just wanted to meet you, and you know my sister. My sister. He's like, "Who's your sister?" It's like he's like, my sister's really good friends with your wife, Tim, and he's like, "Who's your sister?" I was like, Shonda Raines, and he's like, "I didn't know Shonda had a brother." Huh? You tattoo? And he sees me with his portfolio. He's like, "Is that your portfolio? You tattoo?" I was like, "Yeah, I tattoo. I work for Randy Herring." And he's like, "Oh, in North Carolina?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, you want a tattoo this weekend? I was like, "Man, I'm getting ready to go back to North Carolina tonight. I got a tattoo tomorrow." He goes, "Oh, I got an extra booth if you want it right now." And I'm like, "Holy fuck," you know?
That's pretty fucking huge.
And like, here I was having to fucking go back home because, you know, I got to go make the bacon, and that was the day that I decided I was leaving Skin Art to go work at Ace. When I got back home, Colin called me and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "Man, making some tattoos." He goes, "Why don't you make a tattoos here?" I was like, I'm going to be soon. I got to turn in my notice. I got to talk with the boss man. He's like, "Well, hurry it up. I'm fucking swamped right now. I got a fucking line of assholes in here, and they're all fucking snapping at my ass like a bunch of alligators. So fucking get your ass in gear, go."
And that's killer to have that, man.
But like those moments were having a fucking portfolio in my hand and meeting someone in person, being present, and it was a really valuable time. And you know, like I got tattooed by a lot of people at that Atlanta convention. You know, even once I was tattooing, I would still try to get tattooed at it. I got tattooed by Scott Sylvia at that show.
I remember you got your stomach done by Scott.
Yeah, I got tattooed by Grime at that show.
You got your chest done by Grime.
Chest by Grime.
I got tattooed by Mario Barth in Richmond. I wish I had got, you know, those shows I always worked, so I never took advantage of getting tattooed, unfortunately. You know?
Dude, not enough people know Mario for his tattoos, you know? They know him for his shop owning and for his ink and stuff, but...
And being a wonderful humanitarian.
He was, it's crazy that he was kind of like one of the leaders of like some crazy new school shit. Like, the Bernie Luther kind of... He was the Euro new school, like the Asian Euro fucking crazy.
Well, the funny
big
thing
outline.
Did you ever talk to Bernie about fucking Mario?
Nah, we didn't breach that. You know, I got tattooed by him a couple years ago, and we didn't.
Not really highly thought of. Like when I got tattooed by Bernie, Mario had done the piece below it, like 2 years prior.
Oh, and you'd already been tattooed by Mario.
Yeah,
before,
and I had shown him some tattoos I had on me, and he's just like, "Oh, and who did this piece of shit?" And I'm like, "Oh, you know," and he's just like, "Yeah, I know," and he kind of made some shitty comments.
That's funny.
But again, they were like, I think it was because they were mainly like.
I'm sure they got a little history. They probably bumped elbows a time or two.
Look at their styles, man. Back in the day. I mean, Mario was
geographically they would have reason to have fucking opinions about one another, you know.
But it was a great experience getting tattooed by fucking Bernie. It really was.
Dude,
you know?
Getting tattooed by Bernie was fucking it was a thing I never expected to happen.
No.
Like getting tattooed by him, getting tattooed by Chris Kahn. getting tattooed by Bob Roberts. Like, those are things that man, I just didn't think they were going to happen.
Do you have, do you have like an experience for getting tattooed? Whether it be the actual.
What?
Do you have an experience, like a favorite experience of getting tattooed? Whether it be what led up to the tattoo, where it took place.
They're all magic.
They
man.
are, but is there one that stands out to you? I know me personally, I would have a hard time putting.
Oh no, I mean, like it would be stands out for a reason, you
Right.
know. Like it'd be like, you know, you'd have to hang up some flashcards. It'd be like a Rorschach test. Like, what does this make you think of? Like, I've been tattooed by about 100 different people.
Right,
now,
but
you know,
but
so like,
do you have
which one? You know, like,
okay?
I don't
Do you
know.
have a story that you would like to tell?
Fuck, I don't know. Give me a flashcard.
Let's say. I don't want to say foreign country because that's.
I've only been tattooed.
That's why I don't want
I've
to say
only been
foreign country.
tattooed 3 times in a foreign
That's
country.
why I don't want to say foreign country. And I was there when you got the last one.
My first one, and then I got tattooed by Yushi, and the last time I was in Japan, and that was fun.
What was your Japanese experience like?
What do you mean?
Like
Getting tattooed?
when you
or-
got tattooed in Japan, what was it like?
Oh, it was fantastic. You know, like it was a small, like, you know, I don't have much space left, so of course
Yeah,
it's
you're
small.
pretty covered. Yeah.
I'm not that big either, so yeah, of course it was small. I don't have any fucking juice to it. Did you turn it off or just take a shit?
No, it's
doing its thing.
it's giving off heat.
All right. Back to the brush. No, so I had met Yushi when I was over there in 2007, and Clay Decker had arranged for some Americans to go over, and I'd gotten to know him through Colin LaRock when I made my first visit over there in 2003 to LA. I was like, man, I want to try to collect a bunch of tattoo work while I'm here. You know, it's the first time I'd ever been to California, and I was like, I want to get whatever I can get. And he's like, you need to get tattooed by Clay Decker. Like, he and Clay had been spending some time together. He was like, Colin was working at Shamrock at this time. Clay had his own place on Orange Avenue. Paul Stotler was working with him over there, but he was also pulling some shifts. He was probably pulling shifts at Bob's and at Mark's at that time. And you know, I kind of knew his name, but I didn't really know him. And he's like, this is one of the guys you need to get tattooed by. He's our kind of people. He's a tattooer's tattooer. He's raw dog and fucking unfiltered, and you know, you need to get some. So I developed this rapport with him from getting tattooed by him, and that was an experience in and of itself. Getting tattooed by Clay, man, that was aggressive. That was some painful shit, and it happened in a blink of a fucking eye.
You got tattooed by Clay at his shop, yeah?
At Orange Avenue, yeah.
Right. I think I was there. I think I showed up after.
No.
Oh,
You weren't
different.
there. No, this was 2003.
Oh, okay.
That week I got tattooed by Mark Mahoney. I got tattooed by Clay, by Bob Roberts, and by Tom Tilden in the course of like 4 days.
Jesus.
6 days, something like that. It was great.
It was great.
It was fucking great. But yeah, so Clay had invited me to come to Japan. So in 2007, I went and did a week in Japan. The crew was let's see, Corey and Brenda Flatmo were with us. Alex wasn't a tattooer. Alex worked the front at True Tattoo, which at that time was Clay's shop.
Clay's
But he had also worked, I think he had worked for Jack for a minute too at Tattoo Land. But he just did front work. He was an Englishman, and you know, he was heavily tattooed, fucking punk rock dude, and he was hilarious. Good people, good fun. But he was with us, and Jimmy Coffin, who I don't think I've seen since then. Maybe once, but I don't remember where. Guy named Kaljun, guy named Larry from Hawaii. He was a little older than us. I can't think of Larry's last name. Escapes me. And let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. There was a couple other people that were over there. Lucky Bastard was over there, but not with us. A guy named Casey from Texas. I don't know. There's a handful of people anyway. But Yushi was one of the people he wasn't really taking us around, but he was with us a good bit. The guys from Scratch Addiction were taking us around. I don't think that shop exists anymore. But we got to know Yushi enough to where he was one of the few people that I'd, maintained any kind of rapport with afterwards. And then when I got this opportunity to go this past year, it was the show that Horishige put on, Tokyo Bay Show. And I had a couple of people come up to bat for me on that. Both Robert and JoJo and from 10,000 Ways, and then Louis Perez. They all were like, hey man, this guy, he's from North Carolina. He'd love to be here if you got room. And it was kind of a last minute thing that Moji's like, hey, he told Louis, he's like, well, if you'll split your booth with him, these are small booths, but if you want him there that bad, you can split a booth with him. And he's like, calls me up and he's like, all right. He sent me the screenshot and he's like, all right, homie, I'm giving this shit up for you.
Oh shit.
And he goes, I don't know how we're gonna do it, but we'll fucking do it prison style if we fucking have to. Like, man, I'm in. I'm small. I'm fun size. Let's go.
Fun size.
Let's fucking go. And I got over, and he was working with Yushi ahead of time. And when I had posted the flyer, he's like, "Are you?" Or no, it was when the website posted that I was going to be in attendance. Yushi hit me up and was like, "You're gonna come to the convention?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be working with Louis." He's like, "Oh, very cool. If you need a place to ship your stuff, let me know. You can ship it here." Which I just about fucked that up real bad.
I remember that story.
It wasn't my fault. I swear it wasn't my fault. It's my fault.
It's my fault.
But to Yushi's credit, he was the one that fucking handled things. He's a fucking wizard, man. He went up and was smoothed it over, and all was well. I owe him greatly. And I told him I would like to get tattooed. I would love to get tattooed by you while I'm here. Not just for the sake of getting tattooed out of the country, but because I just love that guy, man. He's just such a fucking rad human being. He was such a ambassador for Japan, like in the 90s, bringing like Freddie Corbin and people like that from California, like the Americans, bringing different Americans into Japan, more traditional, like less Japanese like minded tattooers,
Right.
That weren't trying to do bodysuits and shit like that. They were doing lettering and fucking
Which
religious
is
tattoos
huge.
and street
it's
shop
amazing.
shit.
Like, I remember the first Tokyo convention, cartoon showing up at, and just blowing the fuck up out there,
Yeah. Well, like he's just such a sweet human being, and he's a great tattooer, and he's got this great shop, man. It is such my kind of place, man. It's just so lived in. It's tiny. It's just filled with cool shit all over the place, and it's just such a destination point. Anybody that's in there, they can feel it. It's this just all body experience of like man, some shit's gone down in this building. Like people are fucking stoked to be there, and I was like, man, I'd love to get tattooed by you, and he came up with Bill and Junie.
Yeah.
And I got tattooed by Bill at Salt Lake City on the anniversary of my 20th year of tattooing. And I was like, I got a little bit of space here. It's not much, like it's like right around my chest up here. I was like, there's some space over here. I've got some space on my stomach or whatever, wherever you want to do it. He's like, oh yeah, right here beside Bill's stuff, I think would be cool. And he's like, yeah, that'd be great, And he's like, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I fucking like, I mean, I want something that's cool with here, you know? Like, I'm in Japan, man. I love some Godzilla. There's like, you know, right there in Shibuya, there the spot where we were staying. There's like this big Godzilla that's on the building there, and it's just, you know, just there, just for no fucking reason. So it was just kind of ever present. I was like, well, I'd love, you know, big on Godzilla, but Yushi's also got this, you know, kind of rockabilly punk rock spirit to him. I was like, man, I like punk rock shit. Like, I've also thought about like a Daruma or something like that. I've always thought about getting a Daruma tattooed. And he's like, yeah, no problem. And then he starts sketching, and I just, you know, I stop worrying about it. He seems to have his fucking mind set on something, so like it'll work itself out.
Let him work it out, yeah.
So he did a Godzilla Daruma punk rock fucking tattoo, like a punk rock Godzilla with a Daruma, and you know, it was just like everything I needed it to be. It was fucking great. It was his thing. He sat down and sketched it out and made this thing happen for me, and it was just in this incredible space. It was by a tattoo that his mentor had done, you know, so it was just this serendipitous moment.
Nice.
And, you know, like, I don't have much space left, but I don't want to ever feel like I'm having so much space that I can't possibly get tattooed anymore.
Well, I think that, you know, a lot of collectors have proven to us that, you know, there's always some extra space somewhere on the fucking body, whether it be, you know, a cover-up or a rework, or you know, I guess you can call it a collaboration from something from 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's always a way to get around the idea of you can always get more tattoos.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's room for more tattoos, you know, and I like the humility that you're forced to have when you get tattooed. You know, makes you remember. You know, like a lot of the tattoos that I've gotten recently have come. Like, I got tattooed by Weatherholtz twice in the last, like, year or so. I got tattooed by him in April of last year, and then before that in October of the year before. Yeah, a big piece of my rib panel over here. It was the last big skin I had, and, you know, like, he and I go way back with when he was first coming up in tattooing. We were at a bunch of different conventions together. I'd started tattooing him some, did a few sessions on some big water and goldfish stuff on his leg, and I got tattooed by him with some little dumb shit a time or two. I got a tattoo from. I was going out to Kings Ave and working with him, and I'd always find an excuse to go and see some music and then go tattoo with him while I was there. And if there wasn't music planned, it would just happen anyway. He and I are big on the fucking like sporadic music thing or extremely planned music thing as well. You know, like whatever it takes. You know, he's one of my my kindred spirits in that field.
Nice.
And so I was out there working, and for some reason stuff just kept coming up about things with no legs. There was like an article. Yeah. It sounds dumb saying it out loud like that, but that was the short of it. You know, he like there was this article about somebody with no legs, and then we were laughing about this thing, and then there was something else about no legs, and then there was a picture of some MMA fighter that didn't have legs, and it's just like every time it would happen, be like, look, there's another thing with no legs. It's like, man, I should totally get a tattoo of something with no legs. He goes, what would it be? And I was like, it should be something with a lot of legs. He's like,
maybe just all legs.
He's like, well, I don't know. I was like, I don't know, what, like an octopus or something? He's like, you know that fucking Weatherholtz laugh. He's like, man, fucking an octopus with no legs. Like, I love it. Let's fucking figure that out. So he draws like just this head foot with no tentacles on it. And was like, I feel like it needs like a speech bubble or something. And this is around that time where the Irma Gerd thing was happening. You know what I'm talking about? Like, this is like 10, 15 years ago. Whenever that fucking thing was a meme, or I don't think they even call things memes yet, but that was a highlight. And I was like, maybe it needs like a speech bubble or something. So he's like, it should say, where's my lurgs?
Where's my lurgs?
So it's just a head foot with no tentacles with a thought bubble, just the dots that just says, where's my lurgs? And we fucking laughed at that shit for fucking day. We still laugh about it, Every time we fucking see each other, somehow it works itself into the vocabulary,
Jesus.
But those are the kind of dumb shit things that fucking make tattooing fun, If you can't do that, if you can't do that, you just lose sight about what you enjoyed about it to begin with.
I think that we have a different perspective on certain things because we do it every single day. We get tattooed. You know what I mean?
Like, I'm not saying everybody's supposed to do that.
No,
I'm not even tattooers.
And that's the point. I think that's kind of the thing. Like, collectors are collectors, and tattooers are tattooers. I mean, we all do dumb shit tattoos, which I think is that's par for the course, and I think it's part of the fun of getting tattooed. It's not always the tattoo; it's the experience. It's
the moment, Yeah. And Lal Hardy's he coined it so well when. This was fucking 15, 18 years ago, where he was talking about, the fact that there's so many fantastic tattooers out there, and a lot of these people they're coming out of the gate 2 and 3 years with just like award-winning work. That's they got a freshness, they've got a hunger, they've got the clients because they got youth on their side, and they've got all this stuff. And Maybe they're that person that sits there with their headphones on and they don't fucking talk to anybody, but they do pretty cool work. And he's like, man, there's all these kids, they've got this increased technology, they've got the endless amount of reference material. They got the keys to it, that we had to fucking carve those keys out of fucking out of some kind of plastic and then mold it into something else with some other tool and then figure out a way to open the lock with it, and Fonzie that son of a bitch a little bit. Yeah. He's like, but these kids here, man, they don't have to do as much as we had to do. He's like, but you know what they don't have? They don't have any fucking stories. I'm like, nope. They don't. Because they're not going out and living, they're not getting those experiences.
Yeah,
like they have the experiences of like, hey man, I fucking had this funny thing happen with some bum that came into the shop, or I had whatever, this crazy drug addict did some shit in the fucking parking lot, or had to kick somebody out. I mean, everybody's got those stories, but when it comes to like crossing international waters and fucking dealing with somebody at that moment that they have where they fucking get tattooed by Cap Sumsky. Yeah. It changes their whole direction. Yeah. Like, holy fuck, I had no idea that this was available to me, or this was even possible, and then I went and got tattooed by somebody that was way better than me, and I saw the linchpin.
Well, you just have to keep an open mind. You have to go out there and you have to experience these things, and you have to try to do things. And not even try. Sometimes it just fucking happens. And that is like the best experiences sometimes, when you can look back on something that you didn't know was going to happen and it happened and you are just blown away by it.
Yeah. And those times, man, like it's crazy. Like I've heard stories, second, third hand, that just, were stories that I retold to other people, and then somewhere down the line I get to know them in person. And I'm like, I heard this fucking crazy story about you, that this and this, and then it turns into, oh fuck no, you don't even know half of it, and then, you hear the real story, and you're like, what?
Well, again,
what the fuck?
That's great when we talk about old stories in Richmond, and who was at the party at 8 o'clock, who was at the party at 11 o'clock, who was at the party at 3 a.m., who was there at 4 a.m. when the fucking cops showed up, Well, so you get to
you get to like the next convention or 6 months later, you get to connect with all these guys again and start talking and putting the fucking little pieces together and be like, damn, wish I didn't go to bed at midnight. You know?
Oh, dude, like I've been in some of those fucking crazy moments where it's like, oh yeah, I got video of that shit. What
Exactly,
are you talking about?
yeah, exactly. I think we all have video of things that nobody wants to see come to light. So,
Oh, totally.
well, on that note, you've got Ace is moving. You're moving to a new location, yeah?
I will be, yeah.
Do you want to? I mean, I'm going to have all your information in the
Yeah, so
description.
this has been it's been something that's been brewing for well over 3 years. I'm moving with my landlord, which is way easier than a lot of things could be. Mainly because I won't have, I don't have somebody kicking me out of the place that I'm at, or I don't have that kind of stress going on. But it's been something where he introduced the idea to me a long time ago, and I was like, nope, not interested. Wasn't interested in the neighborhood that he was moving. Like, had this opportunity at. It's like, oh, I think it would be a great fit for you. I'm gonna rejuvenate this building. He's like, nope, plasmid wood. This is my fucking place. This is where I'm at. I've got 2 businesses here. This is my thing. Fuck that. That's stupid. And then he wanted to revisit it. And at that time, I had a big change going on in my life, like a relationship change had happened. And I used to spend a lot of time out of the state, which I wasn't ever going to be doing anymore. And, so he was like, wanted to have this meeting, and, under other circumstances, I would have been like, man, that guy wants to try to push this bullshit on me again. I'm not interested in it. And, but at the time, man, the fucking world was another place for me. I didn't know what was going to be happening. So I, it's like, yeah, man, let's fucking have lunch. So first thing I did was like, hey, man, I just had this big change happen, big relationship, relationship ended, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, man, I wouldn't have asked. I was like, no, it's perfect timing, dude. Let's talk big. What is the big opportunity? Like, who's gonna be in the building with me? Like, when is this gonna happen? What can we do? I want to dream big. What will you let me do with this? Can we put a fucking mural on the building? Can I do this? Can I do that? And he's like, dude, we can do anything you want to, man. It's a fucking 6,000 square foot building. You can have as much of it as you want. I was like, well, I can't afford a 6,000 square foot building, but let's get talking. Let's go see it. And so we started talking about it seriously, and he seemed to think that it would be something we could be in about 1.5 years, and that was over 1.5 years ago that date would have been.
Jesus.
But at the same time, hasn't slowed me down from working in the building that I've been in for 22 years almost now. So I'm like, all right, well, I'll just keep doing what I do. And, one of these days I'll get to a point where I can do this in another place. And in the meantime, like you mentioned the art collection and such. Like, I've been using this as an excuse to do what I have the natural proclivity to do anyway, which is obsessively buy artwork. I'm like, oh, well, now I got a reason to buy artwork. So I started buying artwork even more than I was. And amassing quite a collection of cool things to make people's tattoo experience that much cooler than it would be. And, giving me an excuse to feel good about collecting more art and push you to fucking paint more. That sort of thing. But in currently I have 4 other tattooers with me. The one that's been with me longest is Chase Spivey. He's been with me for about 10 years. Not quite, I don't think, but somewhere right around 10 years. And then Andrew Black. He's been with me not much less, maybe less than a year, I think, less. So like 8 or 9 for him. need to fucking find the dates out that these guys started.
It is a bummer that you can't remember certain things that the people you spend your lives with.
Well, I mean, I used to travel out of town on like a, every couple of fucking months, and I had someone traveling from out of town to see me, and I was going to conventions and, like doing all this other stuff, and, it all kind of just fucking, it all just kind of blends together. And I used to be really good about keeping all that stuff, but really I think the thing that polluted my brain more than the booze that I used to drink, which used to be a lot, was that when I was changing out the art shows, it was like a monthly thing. So every 4 or 5 weeks I was doing a full rejuvenation. Damn it, why am I not getting any juice from this guy? There we go. I was getting a full switch out of the artwork where I was, and man, that shit was gruesome. It's like, all right, I just changed this shit out and had an art show. Now it's time to fucking change it out and have another art show.
Yeah, that's gotta be a chore, man.
It was fucking fun though, man. I love doing that shit. That was the most cathartic shit I've probably ever had in my life. Is just kicking everybody out of the room and cleaning the walls, packing up a bunch of artwork, and then getting new artwork in, and then being able to hold all of it and arrange it and put it on the walls again. And it was fun. I loved that shit. I loved it a lot. But anyway, Andrew's been with me like 9 years or so. Conan's been with me since 19. I think the end of 19 he came in right before COVID. So over 5 on him. And then I took on my one and only apprentice a little over 2 years ago, getting closer to 3 years ago now since we first started the task. Matt Hooker, who's in the room with us, running the fucking the ones and twos over on the fucking.
Matt's our stand-in fucking producer / director. He's doing a phenomenal job in this fucking guerrilla style.
This inaugural painting fucking event.
Yeah. So.
But he came in and started apprenticing with me. A couple summers ago, 2-3 summers ago, and we've been he's been actually tattooing for over a year now. Nice. He's still learning new things all the time, getting to experience, tattooing new body parts and new types of tattooing, and I'm trying to help him however I can. Not having a formal apprenticeship from the clowns that I did, get what learning I got, it wasn't something where I could be like, well, here's how I learned, or I just fucking thrown him in the living room of the house and had him tattoo everybody on a coffee table. And
yeah, right, exactly.
Figure it out.
There's something to be said for that. I mean, there's something to be said for learning in the rough.
I got here, so I ain't hating on anybody else figuring it out the way they do.
Nice.
But he's been a friend of mine for a long time. We painted together for 15 years or so, upwards of that. We do a lot of big work in restaurants, and I knew that he had the art skills to navigate a lot of things. I knew he had the people skills to navigate this fucking business, and we get along on a lot of different levels. We played music together for years. We painted together for years. And he's gotten some silly tattoos from me over the years, so I figured that he'd have the skin to make the things happen that he would need to make happen. And he's been learning on a regular basis and is available, so someone should come and get tattooed by him for sure. Or buy a fucking painting from him, because he makes paintings too.
He is a tremendous painter. You are a very talented young man.
Yeah, we have a fucking blast. He's probably tired of listening to my fucking stories over and over again by now. But,
oh, go figure.
But so is anybody else.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to kind of really touch on, or?
Not specifically. I mean, I think my motivation when you first started doing this, you're like, one of these days, we're gonna end up doing one. We can either do it down in your town or do it up here or whatever. Speaking of your shop or whatever, and I was really like, I wanted to kind of get you back out of back with a fucking airbrush in your hand or whatever, something physical. Not because I absolutely hate digital
No.
artwork, but just because I'm never gonna fucking hang any of it on my wall. And while I do have some original stuff from you, I would like more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we talked the other night. You have one of my favorite pieces. I think probably my second favorite piece I've ever done.
Yeah, I love that thing, man.
So.
The piece from your sketchbook, the
Yeah.
softback book that you did when
Yeah,
you
the soft cover.
first started putting out that
The
stuff.
cover. It's the cover piece. It's the little red. So
Yeah, I love that thing.
yeah,
And that thing, the embodiment of that is that it has the sketch application and the painting application and the fleshed out sketch and the raw sketch and
the
and
idea was to try to, because I mean, I'd seen, I don't, it's been so long, I don't recall. I'm certain
I had
I've
a
seen
painting
it
that was
someplace.
not unlike that before.
But from whom?
No, I had one that I did.
Oh, that you did. Okay.
Yeah, somebody had this evolution. It was like a guy down in Savannah. What the fuck's his name? Black Orchid was his shop. Why is my name?
Black Orchid. That sounds familiar.
He had a shop in Savannah. I'll think of his name in a minute. Anyway, sorry, bud. But he had this show called Evolution, and a lot of people were doing,
That's okay. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, his name, fuck, it escapes me. Anyway, I'd done a piece for that had like partial sketch and partial. Chris Autry. Thank you. Yeah, Chris is a great dude. But he had that show, and I remember doing something similar to that. But like when I saw that one of yours, I was like, dude, I gotta figure that one out. I gotta get a hold of that. And
that was super fun. I mean, I think I did 2 of those. I did 2 finished ones, and I did other ones that were prints from smaller sketches that I basically, remarked upon, and then painted over the print, and not the original art. So
yeah, so I just wanted to. There's plenty of people doing podcasts. There's plenty of people doing video casts, and it felt like something, like you're in a video format versus somebody that's just listening to this shit on Spotify.
Yeah,
so
right.
like a lot of times it's just 2 people sitting there, and I've
no, it can be very, again, like that's, I think the biggest thing is I'm not that well versed in this kind of stuff, so I'm still trying to figure shit out.
Yeah, and I know that it's not a small amount of effort. And I know that, like, with the stuff that you do, a lot of times it would be nice to see some kind of secondary or tertiary thing going on, like even if you were to be able to just like show some of the artwork that the artist that you're showcasing on that at that time, like kind of floating while you're talking about it, or when you're talking about a convention, showing some kind of segue. But I know it's not like your full-time fucking job.
Well,
you're not making money on it.
Yeah, therein lies the problem.
But
it's not even a matter of money. It's just
it's
being savvy enough to do it.
Yeah, I know that for me, like when I post stuff on Instagram now, it's like I get a really good response from showing people my process, and it's partially because my process is a fucknut way of doing anything.
Yeah.
I don't do things the way anybody should ever do anything.
Especially considering you're working with an airbrush, fucking paintbrush.
I plan on this being a finished piece by the time I'm done with it, Like, I don't necessarily always paint this fast, but I do a lot of figure drawing. And, sometimes those are fucking 1-minute sketches. Sometimes they're 20-minute sketches. And I walk away from them when they're done, and I don't fucking revisit them. Because it's like, I'll revisit some other painting. This is nice that it's just like, it's almost like some sidewalk art or something. Like you get what you get, and that's it. It's fucking fine. I'll make some new art later on.
Exactly.
And I'm, I painted before I tattooed, so I really enjoy the fact that there should be, You know, like there should be some of that coming out of me at any given time. I should be able to produce art and just, you know, sometimes it can be whimsical and sometimes it can be really fucking serious and I can spend a lot of time in it. Sometimes it can be very allegorical and very personal, and sometimes it's not supposed to be. And so this was more of an opportunity for, you know, to fill up the space with something besides just like bitching about what, you know, how water's just not as wet as it used to be, or fucking, you know,
I agree. I mean,
you eat the wrong shit on your pizza or some bullshit. Like it's tired.
It is hard.
It's just fucking
pull.
tired, you know.
It's hard to pull away from certain things sometimes.
And it's, you know, like when you get younger people in, you know, like it's great too, but sometimes they don't really offer much in the way of like they don't have enough wisdom to do anything other than make us go, oh fuck, I'm old. I forget that, you know, like this is supposed to be fun. And, you know, same as like getting a fun tattoo from a buddy, or, you know, like whatever.
I was going to say late night in a hotel room and
getting some
Atlanta.
stupid shit in a hotel room.
Or being in Texas. And
we could tell those stories all fucking day.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, they'd be a lot better if we pulled out some pictures when we did. Might fucking...
Yeah,
might be a problem for some people.
That was the point I was going to make.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes people don't want those photos seeing the light of day.
Dude, that's why they stopped letting cameras come to some of those parties.
Oh yeah.
But you know, the getting a more concrete experience out of this thing that leads to something. You know, if I were sitting on a couch, you know, I wouldn't have anything done at the end of this 2 or 3 hours worth of time.
Yeah. And
instead, I'm going to have a finished piece of artwork here. Which also begs the question of, you know, like, if I can make a piece of artwork in 2 hours, then why am I not? You know?
That's a good point.
Why am I not spending some 2 hours a week making a piece of artwork? And if I can do it, you know, I'm not the best there is. I'm the one that does it like I do it. And I can't really train anybody to do it the way I do it because I don't even know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. And, you know, like, it's painful that you made me wear this fucking microphone because I don't want to have a shirt on. I don't like painting with a shirt on.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're normally half naked when you're...
Yeah,
I remember
it's fucking gross.
The art show that we did, it was a Star Wars show, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You drove up from...
No, I flew up and had that thing in a box, and I finished it on your kitchen table.
Yeah, finished it on the kitchen. I have photos of that. Unfortunately, none of those people none of you guys will be able to see that because I'm not going to figure out how to put this on there by fucking Wednesday. But yeah, I have photos of you fucking hanging out fucking on the kitchen table trying to get that shit finished.
And I did.
To hang on the fucking wall. So.
But that was always the kind of that's part of the exhibitionist in me. You know, the part of the musician side of things. You know, I was always trying to get Tommy and Chris to be more active with stuff, and we were all going to Richmond one year. I was working it, they weren't working it. I don't think they were working it. Maybe Chris was working with me. I don't know. And I was like, dude, get active. You know, there's a competition for flash. You don't have to fucking be an artist that's participating in the show to do it. Just do some flash. Take some flash up there. Maybe you get a fucking trophy. Maybe you fucking get in a magazine. Maybe somebody's paying attention to you because you do it. But just fucking be active, you know? Like, fucking do something. They're like, oh, dude, I don't have time to do it. I was like, bullshit. I took some supplies. I drew them. I had my girlfriend drive, and I drew them in the truck on the way. I finished them up on Friday night after I tattooed all day, and I got a fucking trophy for Tattoo of the Day. I was like, see? You can. Like, I was like, why don't you do some flash? Maybe you win a trophy. I did some flash, and I won a trophy. And I did it in time that I couldn't do anything else.
Yeah, but you have to realize that you are far
I can't realize anything because I fucking did it.
Yeah, you did.
I told them they
That's
could.
my point.
I told them they could. They didn't, but I did, and I did all of it.
Yeah, no,
I did it, and I got what the goal was.
But you do got to realize that a lot of people are not that same person. That's what sets people apart.
Yeah, but it's only because they don't fucking try to see if they can be.
No, true, yeah.
Because some people are just like, oh, I can't do that.
Well, so that's an ignorant way of thinking. You know what I mean? Like,
But
You know?
no, both of those guys were super talented. You know, like they were fucking super good. It was me giving them a hard time, but me
Exactly.
following through on giving them a hard time.
Well, you gave me a hard time, dude. I was cursing you, motherfucker, like left and right with ass fucking mad. Like, how bad was that before, dude? Yeah, I'm gonna make a reel just out of that of me motherfucking you because I'm fucking trying to set up cameras and try to get this shit together. I had to put this thing together, fucking bring in inks and fucking paint and shit, and I'm like, fucking Rodney.
Well, I appreciate you valuing my fucking harebrained bullshit enough to have the wherewithal to call me out and make me fucking do what I'm doing too.
Well, I appreciate you fucking doing that.
But like we were having a conversation, you know, last night when we were eating dinner, and you said something about somebody having like this rock star attitude, and you know, like what's your take on these fucking clowns and the rock star attitude? It's like, well, I mean, like I'm not one that takes compliments well, so I don't see the rock star thing. Like I don't want to be a rock star. I just want to rock. And that's the fucking thing, you know? It's like the making of the art is got to happen for me. It had to happen from the fucking beginning. Like, you know, I as soon as I was given a fucking pen or a pencil as a, you know, single digit old child, it was like, oh, get the fuck out of my way. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, you know? And with the tattoo thing, you know, like I've always admired the people that were leading the pack, that were doing something out of the ordinary, that were having a blast doing it. You know, they could have been having a blast doing anything else, and they probably were. They probably having a blast doing a lot of other things.
That's just who they are.
But it was, you know, it was the ones that were still showing up for work, whether they had kids, whether they had a band, whether they had, you know, whether they were a deacon in their church or whether they were a godless heathen, whatever they were doing, they were fucking coming in, they were applying themselves to the best they could, and they weren't taking no for an answer. They weren't saying like, oh, I can't do this because of A, B, C, D, E, whatever. It was just like, how did you just have time to do that thing? You know, like, oh man, I was just doing it. And it's like, oh, fucking, wait a minute. You did that, but you were doing this other thing. Like, yeah, I did that too.
Well, again, I think
you can do all of it.
It's a great big fucking world, dude. And the fact of the matter is, those are the things that set people apart.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a reason why there are fucking amazing tattooers in this business, and there are whatever tattooers in this business. There's also a reason why there is amazing tattooers who don't ever fucking perform, because they're just who they are. You know, whether it be laziness or fucking lack of inspiration in the moment. You know, shit happens. You know.
Well, you know, sometimes, you know, like getting people out of their shell to do something that they won't do on their own makes them realize that they can and that they will. You know, like Matt was the one that helped me get the figure drawing off the ground. You know, like it was a plan that I wanted to do way early, but it wasn't anything that I could put together, that I could make happen. And then we were sitting there probably drinking a beer at the Beaver or something, and you know, like came into this fucking like notion that, well, there's no way that it's going to happen if we don't do it, so we just got to do it. And he was the one to help, you know, get in touch with the first models, and he was the one to keep, you know, the keeper of the time and everything like that in the very beginning of it. And then that turned into a lot of people in our community that were like, had never really done figure drawing, learning to, you know, the thought process behind it. And now not that I'm the only person that ever did, you know, ever wanted to have it happen, or me or him, either one. But, you know, like some of the people that do it now, they do it because we did. Because he and I were like, you know, the ones to initiate it.
Well, someone's got to be the one to set the bar and start getting people to kind of leap over it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kindling for the fire that you know, other people will be glad to be a part of. And so, you know, like I don't know, man. I kind of want to do whatever I can do to drag other people along with me to do the things that I like to do. You know, and I don't want to do them alone. I want to have fun. I want to have a sustainable thing. And when you get more people doing it, somebody's going to figure out a way to make it more sustainable than I can. Somebody's going to figure out a way to make money off of it.
Being the first person to do something and get the ball rolling, and then have somebody else take the wheel and actually steer it in a way that makes sense and actually get something accomplished. I mean, we know full well, being an artist especially, it's hard to pull that shit off, to make something work where you know that you not only did a good job, but you know it's going to continue to go forward. You know, sometimes you can't be the only person to be doing that. You know what I mean? So, all right. Well, on that note, I think we're going to end it. You good with that?
Yeah. I guess so. Yeah, I'm pretty close. I'm gonna fucking sign this thing here in a second.
Oh, you're gonna sign it now?
Yeah, give me like a couple minutes. Give me a couple minutes, because I just sprayed a little more purple than I wanted to up here. So.
Oh Jesus!
And it's not a problem.
So we're gonna get this finished on camera, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Let's finish it on camera.
All right, no problem.
That way I can't back out of it, and I don't have to do any more to it.
I haven't seen this thing yet, so.
Oh yeah, it looks just like you. Again.
Well, I mean, so for anybody who wants to know, this is far from done. This will get finished. I will post this on the Not For Nothing Instagram account. This way people get to see what it looks like.
Oh, that's right. You got video on it too.
Yeah.
I do. I set up. I don't know if it's running or not, but I'd set up a hyperlapse on it.
Yeah, for your thing.
Yeah, I've been trying to that was something I started saying too. Like I've noticed like people really respond well to seeing these hyperlapses on, like, if I don't really do it in tattoos, but I do it with my paintings all the time. And part of it's just to let people know that I'm not doing this shit like with an iPad or digitally, or, you know, I'm not manipulating it that way. I'm doing it pretty arduously, and a lot of it is really off the cuff, you know. Like, I mean, I'm not working with any reference from this. It's like, fuck it, you know, I'll figure it out. I kind of wanted. I thought I was gonna fucking do some sketching last night. Just gonna
shove that in there.
Shove this in here. Yeah, I thought I was gonna do some sketching last night, and I had intentions that did not.
Well, so you're in the process of putting together a book, yeah?
Yeah. I'm going to be a part of one of the Black Dagger books.
So how much of a part are you playing in that book?
Well, I'm going to be putting all of the content. It will be mine. And Josh from Black Dagger is, you know, he's been my contact through most of this stuff, and he's told me, he's like, man, I'm glad to be as much of a director on this, and I will take criticism very well if you have any. If you want guidance, I can give it to you. If you want to be in control, I'm okay with sitting on the back. And I'm like, well, you know, I really like the idea of giving you way more information than you need, and then you editing it, because you have a cadence with this thing, and I know that you're gonna have some insight with what people like, and you're gonna be able to tell me, you know, much like that time where fucking Bob Roberts was talking about somebody telling him, you know, what of his paintings are valuable, like, or more valuable in their eyes. I'm interested in seeing what somebody else's take is on it, you know, on my work. And I'm gonna offer him a pretty wide selection of, you know, maybe a couple of decades, maybe 3 worth of some stuff, you know, and then see what that reaps.
When you hoping to have a release date on that?
It'll be June 1st.
Oh, it's definitely June 1st?
So I'm told.
So again, I'll put this all in the description, and we'll have all the information for Black Dagger as well. So,
I guess it's okay that I'm talking about it.
well, I fucking hope so at this point, because I'm not going to be able to edit the fuck out of this thing.
Yeah,
So.
that's fine. I'll ask for apologies, or I'll offer apologies and ask for forgiveness if necessary.
Well, the majority of the artwork is done for it. It's been documented. already.
I'm still working on.
putting
I'm
stuff
still
together.
working on some things, and I got to document a bunch of stuff too. That I do all that stuff on my own. I photograph it all with digital SLR, and I've got a buddy of mine, Michael O'Neill, is a local photographer and an instructor that helped me with some of the some of the ins and outs of shooting flat work, because that's something I wasn't very good at, but something that I needed to do quite often, and he showed me some of the ins and outs on it, gave me a tutorial on it, and shot some, it's like I brought my camera over and a couple of paintings, and we shot them, and he lit them and showed me what to do, and then told me what to get to be able to do the same kind of thing on my own. So I invested a few $100 in some lights, and I already had the cameras and that kind of shit. So it was a good little tutorial. One of the smarter things I've done in the last little bit that didn't cost me a whole lot of money, but definitely has made me a lot better at it, and that's helped me to be able to document some friends' work as well, and like the capture is what it's all about, dude. You gotta capture your art well if you want to fucking recreate it,
Right.
And so he really kind of changed my game on that stuff, and this is another one of the things that I can do like that. This is capture this later on and send you a good picture of this that you can use to add to the mix.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, what? And we're real close. White highlights, dog.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
They say the white highlights. They say the white lights hurt. White highlights hurt worse.
It's funny. I don't want to say it hurts, but it hurts. Like,
I don't want to say this is painful, but I don't
knees,
fucking like it.
My knees are killing me right
I
now.
don't fucking like it. All right. I'm gonna sign this bad boy.
You signing it?
I'm signing it. I'm signing this motherfucker.
All right, Rodney Raines is signing his painting.
Fucking. Let's see here.
As he signs his painting.
As he signs. Can I remember my name?
I don't know. Can you? It's not that late at night, but
Yeah, no rumplements tonight.
no rumplements tonight. Exactly.
Coming out of retirement for this signature.
Nice.
And that's it. That's all you get.
And that's done.
How long did that take?
We were on for about 2.5 hours, I guess.
That's not bad.
No, definitely not. I'm gonna get photos of that. I'll figure out how to fucking get that on there. Hey everybody, thank you very much. I apologize for anything that Matt might have fucked up. No, I'm just kidding. Matt, thank you so much. Matt Hooker, he is now working over at Ace Custom Tattoo. Thank you so much, Matt, for doing everything you've done. I want to thank everybody for sitting in for another episode of fucking Not For Nothing. Rodney, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
This is my first.
Thanks for buying in on my fucking bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll have more bullshit available soon.
Pain in the ass. I'm going to post most of these images and stuff will probably go on the Instagram. But thank you very much for tuning in. Like and subscribe. Spread the fucking word. This is the first night of a fucking 2-week road trip. So there's going to be more coming up. So keep an eye out. See you when I see you.
Cheers.
Cheers.